Yeah.
Sometimes it's a figure of speech.
And sometimes a second is.
Yeah.
How's it going? Good.
Well, on that note, cell phones. And if you need to have a conversation, we can hear you all the way to the staircase.
You can take the elevator.
Yep, take the elevator downstairs if you don't want us to hear. All right, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna go ahead and call the Winchton Conservation Commission meeting to order for Thursday, August 15th, 2009. We have some minutes from the previous meeting. For years that we were all in attendance for at the last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes for 7:25.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, Tony. And we have some bills.
We don't have any bills,
We
as I, sent you, let you know in an email, a longtime recording secretary has resigned, decided to retire. So we do have a new recording secretary lined up. She's not here tonight, but she will be doing it from the tape of the broadcast, and then will be joining us thereafter. She currently also does the planning board and finance committee.
I will say that we will deeply miss Patty's services. She was very good at her job, and trusted her immensely with the tasks that she had, and she will be sorely missed.
Extremely reliable, can always depend on.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't Patty get paid for doing the minutes in that?
Yes.
In that, so wouldn't that be this month's
No.
bill?
No, she gets paid.
She gets paid in advance?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially, yeah.
Can I make a motion that we draft up a letter to send her with our appreciation for her years of service?
I think that's a great idea.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I will do so.
Thank you,
Thank
David.
you.
So when's your next meeting?
Okay, so no bills to approve for this particular time. We need to then wait until 7:05 for the first RDA. Is there something that we can talk about in less than 2 minutes?
Island Road, is that lengthy? 55 Island Road, is that lengthy?
Yes.
Well, we could do it
You
right
want
now.
to- you want to- I mean, there's not much
Yeah,
else
sure.
to talk about that.
Yep.
Diane, are you here? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I told her 7:45.
Okay, that takes care of that.
Because that was.
1 minute. Okay.
Oh, yeah, old business, I see. Yeah, so, 30 seconds.
I could mention that I gave Randy Lucius permission to do some grading down at his self-storage facility on 140 there, on condition he put in some hay bales, which he did. So he's outside the 50-foot no disturb.
And I meant to say, David, I saw Powell setting up over on the logging operation, but I couldn't see any erosion control yet.
Looks, Jeff and I went over there today, or we went past there today. It looks like they've started.
They were putting it in. I went by
Okay.
late this afternoon, and they were
Okay.
putting in
They really
silt
shouldn't
fence.
They really shouldn't have started doing digging
Yeah.
before they put it in, but it
Yeah.
looks like they're putting it in.
They were just about done with it.
Oh, okay, good.
With the erosion control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know they move
Yeah, they were
fast.
putting it in when I went by. All right, pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Winchton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Winchton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 15th, 2019, at 7:05 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by the Winchton Community Park Committee on behalf of the property owner, Town of Winchton, for proposed work within a bordering vegetated wetland and associated 100-foot buffer zone at 86 Ingleside Drive, Assessors Map 5A-3, Lot 348. The project entails improvement to existing trails, enhance public accessibility, including widening, placement of wood chips, geomesh fabric with crushed stone, and wooden boardwalks, replacement for non-functional stone culverts within a new 12-inch diameter culvert, and vista pruning. The hearing will be held on the 4th floor conference room, Winchester Town Hall, 109 Front Street. The request for determination of applicability is available for public review at the Land Use Office, Room 10, first floor of the Winchester Town Hall on Wednesdays and Thursdays during the hours of 9:30 to noon, except for 3 to 6 p.m. on meeting nights, or by calling Conservation Agent for appointment.
John,
Okay,
give us the 30,000-foot view, please.
thank you. The information tonight will be referenced to the set of 3 colored drawings and the set of 2 sketchy black and white drawings. The first page where it says wetlands reroutes, it's the grand scheme of the park, basically. And we're dealing with tonight is the trails that are in red is the trail that we're going to enhance to try to make it more compatible with people that have inability to walk. I don't know if you've heard of a freedom chair. It's like a wheelchair that you work by mechanical arms. And a lot of the veterans organizations are providing them for some of their clients so that they can go out and go in the woods and go on trails. And but the trail needs to be upgraded to probably 4 feet wide, basically, to accommodate that. So in the areas, as you know, if you've walked through the woods, there's muddy spots in the spring. There's places where there's a little bit of sheet runoff, maybe. There's a couple on this particular trail. There's one place that was going to be a sticky wicket, and we decided to move the trail away from it. So the trail will go circumvent the wetland immediately upon going down the hill from the back of the building, if you're familiar with that part of the trail. Further on the trail, there's an area that was flooded, has been flooded occasionally by a backup from an original beaver dam. It must go back 20 years. I think it was back when there was water in Waitatic Pond or Whitney Pond. And the beavers had built a dam. It's all covered with grass and brush now, but it still holds back water in the spring a little bit. So this water that comes down off the hillside will back up in this area, and it's going to be a wet spot forever, basically.
Oh, John, Ray's looking for you to talk into the microphone. Thank you.
I thought I was talking into it. Okay.
See how that works? Thank you.
The area on that plan, it says footbridge. That's the area of where the beaver dam water flows in the spring, comes down off the hillside. And we plan to put a wooden footbridge, the design of which has not been developed yet, but it's on the second page of the black and white. You see the footbridge listed. And it'll be probably a two-part bridge that'll go about maybe 30 feet, 20 to 30 feet from upland to upland, and then from upland to more upland, and going over the wet areas that are wet in the spring. But the rest of the trail will be basically, if needed, and I'll bring this up and show it to you. This is taking the soil from the earth. This is wetland soil, woodland soil. Sometimes wet, sometimes not. I put this geomesh fabric down. As you can see the geo fabric here, okay? And it's basically a geogrid. You can buy it down at Powell's, and there's other places you can purchase it. This is a product that's designed for driveways, and I think, Tony, you mentioned about using something like that in Maine. Comes in a 12-inch wide roll, and it can be cut off, and we can cut it into 4-foot strips. So you put down that on top of the soil. Just rake off what you need to level it, or get it sort of level. Put the geogrid down, And then you put, I think it's about 1¼ inch. This Powell's got a magic pile of stone that won't go through these. I think it's 1¼ crushed stone first, and then backfill over that with like a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch pea stone or crushed stone again. And that creates a beautiful walkable and drivable with ATVs pathway. The Hubbardston group in Hubbardston making trails have been using this. I went down to see how they did it. Water will percolate through it because it's porous.
Yep.
It'll walk through it that way. But there are in some cases, there will be need for what they call a J drain, which is basically, and I don't know if you've got, I don't think you've got, I'm gonna give this to Dave. What it amounts to is a plastic 1x6, 1 inch high, 6 inches wide box that comes in a roll, and it comes in a roll, it's like 160 feet roll. You unroll it, and you would put it under places where there might be a little bit of flow expected, and it'll let the water run through that. I'll give you this, Dave, anyway, so you got an idea what it is. But basically, it's called J drain, and it'll go underneath this in areas where there might be some sheet flow that won't quite penetrate through it. But basically, this is a very porous situation, but makes a very good walking path. And we'll only be using it in the places that are in need of it that get muddy.
Can you show us, point out where on the plans, John, you're expected to
There's
use
one
it?
place on the plan we know for sure, and that's up on this plan here. It's up in this area here. It's opposite the soccer field. The soccer field, the road going in is here, and the soccer field is there. And then there's water that comes off in the soccer field, and it kind of goes across the trail in that area in little streamlets in really heavy spring, right? Really, yep. But otherwise, it's just kind of soggy.
Mhm.
So we're going to utilize this for sure in that area that's green right there. And there may be a couple more spots on the trail where there may be some little low spots. Rather than putting fill in, make it level, this will follow the contours and be a very good walking and riding and for bicycles and so forth. So that's the game plan there. The culvert will be put where it says stream crossing right here. And that's on that same trail just down below where we're gonna use this. There's a culvert that was a stoned up culvert, goes back to, who knows, 1800s maybe, when that was a farm and they had a cart road down through there. There was a stoned up culvert, like a giant French drain. It's not working, and water goes over the top of the stone. So we're gonna pull the stones out and put a 12-inch diameter culvert. I don't know what, plastic or metal, I'm not sure, whatever the highway superintendent said to give away. And probably I'll have to use a small backhoe to do the digging for that. Most of the other work will all be done by hand or with wheelbarrows or maybe a little bobcat or something, but no big equipment is expected on any of this trail.
Do you think any erosion control needs to be used there where
I
you're
would
selling
say
the culvert?
probably there needs to be some erosion control for the culvert replacement. Because if we get a big storm and it's dug out, you're gonna have a problem, but the rest of the places, I don't see any need for it because we're not disturbing, we're not digging anything. We're just gonna rake off, maybe pull a few, roots from plants, not cutting any trees down, not moving any earth. So there shouldn't be much to erode.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
I'd like to say that what you guys are doing is great, and I have the utmost confidence that you have the best interests, in the town, and I'm fully on board with what you're proposing here, and I think you guys are doing a great job, and I really.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think it's been very well thought out.
I think there's one other point that I do need to stress, though. the vista pruning that we mentioned, there's two places
Mhm.
on this plan, as you see.
Yeah.
When you go into the park, straight ahead, there's a trail that goes down to the lake. And at the top of that hill, they're gonna put a porch, or what do you call it?
Observation
A
deck.
deck, or observation deck.
Mhm.
It's going to be, as it shows here, out of the 100-foot buffer zone. But we would like to clear 50% of the trees in an angular view, for an angular view of Whitney Pond from that deck. We would like to ask permission to cut down 50% of the trees, leaving the large pines and you know, the heavy-duty stuff, and just cut the smaller ones that are preventing viewing from that deck.
I'm fine with that, John.
And
I don't know.
then hand prune down at the water's edge, there's a lot of small brushes growing up over the years to waist high. And then we've got a plan in our proposal
Mhm.
to maintain that. And the other place would be out at what we call the cove, if you see that, that's out on the point. There's another area there, we wanna do the same thing, with no trees there, just clear it for vision. We're gonna put a picnic table or some kind of a bench at that point.
Yeah, I would say again, John, I think, and I would imagine the rest of the board probably feels the same, that we support the project, and we have the utmost confidence in what you guys want to do. I have no problem with the vista pruning. I can't speak for the other board members, but I'll let them speak about that. I don't see an issue with it in this case, because it's a public benefit, and you're trying to encourage people to visit the park, so.
Thank you.
Tony?
Well, I had the opportunity to walk out there with them, and I loved every idea that they came up with, and they asked about all this stuff that you guys talked about tonight, and I said, I didn't see a problem
Okay.
with it. It's well thought out and well designed for public access and that.
Yep.
So,
I'm all good with it. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's great, guys. Do what you gotta do, and
I would just recommend that the vista pruning be done after nesting season.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so.
Which would be,
Pretty much now.
Yeah, now would be a great time
Yeah.
of year to do it,
maybe
absolutely.
through the winter even.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll do it.
so.
thank you guys for doing this. This is a great,
This is.
great benefit to the
it's-
town.
It's gonna be great when it's all put together, and little pieces at a time, really,
Yeah.
are very walkable and.
We'll be back next year with some of the stuff on the Elm Street
That's another whole
Trail.
nother.
We trust you'll come up with a
Doing
great
the
plan.
easier projects first.
Yeah, phase one.
And thank you for everybody else that's volunteering with you to do this. That's
Yes.
great.
So,
Okay.
We're
so
very happy.
need a motion to close the hearing,
make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
and motion to issue a negative determination.
Motion to make a negative determination.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much, guys.
Very much.
We'll keep you informed when we're getting ready to do something, so Dave will know.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like you're doing a great job.
Somebody's doing something.
Good job on the diorama too here.
Yeah.
And these are excellent
I
plans.
was gonna bring brownies in,
These
but
are
I
as
thought
good
that
as
would
any
be better.
professional.
In Maine.
Wow,
It's
wow. he- he
unbelievable.
knows
You
what
saw
he's
the
doing.
rocks in it?
Yeah, nice map.
They
huh?
put that down, and they also put a felt paper down.
Oh.
Yeah.
That,
Right.
and they put 6
Oh, I
inches
see.
of gravel over it,
Ah.
and they drive logging
Okay,
trucks
excellent.
over it. And don't,
Guys.
Yeah, they got a variety.
it worked.
I like that
Really,
stuff,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
I gotta do a,
very interesting.
All right.
Take
you
care.
got that?
Yeah, I got it, yeah.
You want a younger guy to help you? or-
No, I'm all right.
All right, just checking.
I've got it.
Oh, we got another RDA. Daniel Tenney. If you wanna just get set up, we're gonna get started here in just a second. Thank you.
Okay, pursuant to provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Winchton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Winchton Conservation Commission will hold public hearing on Thursday, August 15th, 2019, at 7:10 PM to consider a request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Daniel J. Tenney for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to Lake Monadnock at 4th Street, Assessors Map M7, Lot 47. The project entails construction of two approximately 20-foot-long block retaining walls. The hearing will be held on the fourth floor conference room, Winchton Town Hall, 109 Front Street. The request for determination of applicability is available for public review at Land Use Office, Room 10, first floor, Winchton Town Hall, and on Wednesdays and Thursdays between the hours of 9:30 and noon, except for 3 to 6 p.m. on meeting nights or by calling conservation agent for appointment.
All right. If you would give us an overview of what you're looking to do and why.
Okay, my house is 20 feet off the water. There's already a retaining wall at the water.
Okay.
Okay, when I got the house 3 years ago, which I inherited, I had to tear out a back foundation. When I did, there was walls, there was already retaining walls there, but they were just about to fall over.
Okay.
So when I did some foundation work on the house with a permit that I pulled from the town, did the work all up to where it's supposed to be, the walls had to go because they were falling over anyways.
Okay.
I'm just looking to replace the retaining walls that were there,
Okay.
that are no longer there.
Were they depicted on any of the old plans, the walls, or any of that? Do you have, like, I guess, have we seen the site at all, or?
I have, there are no walls there now.
Right, they were torn down, but,
They were falling down. I mean,
Yeah.
Just pushed them over.
okay. And this is more or less to kind of maintain a grade, kind of back.
There's actually a pretty serious erosion problem,
that's
so,
a steep
so,
hill.
so the walls
Drops
really
down
need to be
really.
Okay.
replaced.
All right.
And he says it's close to the water,
All right.
so.
Any, okay.
Just a matter of putting in erosion control.
Okay.
That's all before the digging starts.
Any concerns from the board on this? No?
I'm good with it.
All
I'll
right.
buy it. I don't know what it is.
So,
Okay.
motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Motion for
Aye.
a negative determination.
That's a good
Motion
thing.
for a negative determination.
So just
Second.
get the erosion control in, Dan, you know, the hay bales you
Yep.
talked about, your line of hay bales, give me a call, I'll come down and take a look at them, then you can
Right.
get started.
Okay,
All right.
how's that?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Negative determination?
Did we?
No.
All in
Did we?
favor?
What's that?
Did he, I don't know if he did it or not.
I don't
Did we
remember.
vote on the determination?
I heard you did.
Moved it and seconded it. Did we vote on it? All right. All right, aye.
Aye. Did we,
Gail,
we
did
voted on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I thought we,
I said second.
see
you
what
said
happens when
all
I'm a
in
secretary?
favor.
All right, I got confused. Doesn't take much.
Well, we'll
little
keep on,
sunburn.
yeah, keep on here. So Fletcher Trust number 1. This is another, oh, this is a
This is an ANRAD.
ANRAD.
This is Mika Lasala.
Why don't you, why don't you,
Would you like me to put the plan?
if you want to stick that kind of in that area, and then he's going to read a notice, so just, yeah, go ahead and get set up, and we'll have
Okay.
you introduce yourself in a second.
Pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Town of Winchton and Wetland Protection Bylaw, the Winchton Conservation Commission will hold public hearing on Thursday, August 15th, 2019, at 7:15 PM to consider the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by property owner Fletcher Trust Number 1 for confirmation of wetland resource area boundaries at Russell Farm Road, Assessors Map 13, Lot 334. The hearing will be held on the fourth floor conference room of the Winchton Town Hall, 109 Front Street. The abbreviated notice of resource area delineation is available for public review at the Land Use Office, Room 10, first floor, Winchton Town Hall, Wednesdays and Thursdays, and during the hours of 9:30 to noon, except for 3 to 6 p.m. on meeting night or by calling conservation agent for appointment.
Okay. It's Mikola?
Mika.
Mika. Welcome.
My name is Mika Lasala. I'm from SJ Miley Engineering, here on behalf of Fletcher Trust Realty. And what we have is a abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, an ANRAD, for a portion of the Fletcher Trust property. They own about 105 acres in that area, and we are looking at the northwesterly corner of that property. We have had Chuck Karen flag several wetland areas that are out there. They're by alphabetical series A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, of which A, B, and C have not been located. Subsequently, we had SOC survey locate these areas with respect to the property lines, and we are here now to get approval of that wetland line. The wetland line was reviewed by Tom Paragallo a few weeks back, and a report was issued confirming most of the wetland areas, the larger area to the north, also the area to the east that you see in green. And he had some questions regarding isolated land subject to flooding and potential vernal pools. And most of the questions that he had, I'm not sure if you have his document before you, he identified an area up in this area, in here, and then over here. Our primary concern is this open area that has been logged. That's pretty much our focus, is that the area that's been cleared and what resource areas lie, what resource areas impact that clearing area.
This is for a solar project, I take it?
No,
No? What is
My
the-
understanding is that there are no definite plans yet for how the property is going to be developed. What triggered this filing was the clear cutting.
Oh,
Yes, so that there was no permit issued under the town's low-impact development
oh.
bylaw. And so the first thing that was decided was, well, go ahead, ask the owner to go ahead and file this ANRAD to see what encroachment, if any, there was in the 100-foot buffer zone. And you can see there is some. It's a little bit harder to see on the plan in front of you than right in front of you than the plan up there. But you see the little squiggly area.
this is the clearing line.
Yeah,
Okay.
And this is the 100-foot buffer zone line.
right.
Oh, well, okay.
So you see that there's been some encroachment in the 100 buffer zone, and even some into the 50-foot no disturb down near flags F5 and F6.
Right in here, in this corner here, there's about 500 square feet within the 50-foot zone. And then this area combined with here and here comes out to a little over 20,000 square feet.
So I
Okay.
think
within the buffer zone.
So I think the commission needs to decide how do you want to handle
That's
this.
what Fletcher is.
You want-
And to give it also back on, I believe the clearing was done in the winter by a logger. So a logging plan wasn't done because the intended was a change of use. The
Right.
forestry plan is prepared when the property is intended to stay as a forest. And our client is intending to develop the area. So at some point, I'm not sure, his development plans haven't been finalized yet, but the first step is to nail down our constraints as to where development could occur within that upper quadrant.
But in the meantime, do you want the areas in the buffer zone to be restored?
Right, that's for us to decide what we want there, and I
You
think
don't
that,
necessarily have to decide that tonight, but.
well, certainly those areas would have been off limits to begin with, so, well, I should.
Prior to filing.
Yeah, back that up. Right. I think that I'd like to have discussion with the board now on this, and we'll take it from there.
So this has been all clear cut, and when they cut it, they went into the buffer zone,
Yes.
And the thought was.
quite a
that-
bit, correct?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess I'm trying to understand their reasoning for not pulling permits. Was there any reasoning at all?
I don't know. I'm sure, I don't know, and I don't know if this is an excuse or not. They were probably told that, they weren't told the permits were needed.
Is there a state forestry plan?
No,
No?
because as Mika just mentioned, that there's change of use. It's not intended to be kept in forestry, so.
Yeah, they had Anderson logging, that was why they didn't prepare a forestry plan for it.
So-
And the instructions from, my understanding from talking with the landowner, he wanted the logger to stay out of the 100 feet away. That was the intent, but it was done in the winter with snow cover, and there's a few spots he went a little bit closer.
I should say there is no erosion out there. There's not an erosion problem in the wetlands.
And-
The stumps have not been removed, correct?
And I have photos from, I went out there when we got involved. I went out there in May, just before I met with you. And I have some photos here of the area, if it helps to give a view. And
It wouldn't hurt, wouldn't hurt.
one sec. And I can walk you through and I can point to where those are. That first photo, I believe, is just out on the street, facing that direction. That is looking into the site from here. That is walking into the top of the clearing back towards the street. That one is a photo into this area here.
Yeah, there's some really big ridges like in
Yeah.
there.
There's an esker. That's a picture of the esker going towards the back. There's like a spine running down
Yeah,
the
there is,
property.
yeah.
That is the tree line here. That's that encroachment.
Yep, and the
Here.
water down there.
Yep. So that's the one where they're just beyond 50 feet, in the buffer zone. That is in this area here to the west. That's beyond, that's not near the resource area, that's just on the
Okay.
westerly side of the esker. That, there's the old cart path that runs through the property, starts here, goes to there. That's a view standing on a ridge, looking down towards the wetland, this area here.
And then one more here. There's the cart path again.
You can see bits of it, yeah, that's going, yeah, continuing in. I took a few photos,
Along that pathway.
yeah, from the ridge where you can see.
I'm gonna let Tony see these.
I saw him,
You saw them?
yeah.
I think there was one, yeah,
Yeah, that's it right
up.
there.
That helps.
You need to leave those with me. You
Yeah,
can-
those are the stay with David. Yeah, we're gonna have some discussion now. Tony, we'll start with you.
I don't, I've lost count of all the loggers that have violated our
Yeah.
wetlands. This is out of hand, totally out of hand. And Anderson's a well-known logger, he should have known better. So, I have to say that, you know, they're gonna have to put the things back together, you know, re-replicate the land to what it was. This just, you know, it's one thing for a homeowner to come in and tell us, well, I didn't know I wanted to take down a tree, but a loggers, it's happened too often in this town. So I'm definitely for a filing on this and after the fact filing, whatever, along with putting back up,
Restoration.
yes, restoration of the
Okay.
areas that were affected.
Yeah, this seems to be a theme that we've been seeing with some people that claim to be in the profession. The fact that this wasn't really on the books and this was kind of a non-permitted action obviously leaves them. Because I'm wondering if permits were pulled, would they have flagged? Would they have gone out and had to mark everything?
Yeah, I mean, that.
They would have avoided this problem altogether.
Well, yeah, I mean, the marking of the buffer zone would very likely have been a condition
Okay,
of approval.
all right.
And we've done that before, when
Absolutely.
people that have come in wanted to log their property off.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
We've had them flag it.
mm-hmm.
I think I'm in a similar mind as Tony in terms of this. I'll let David weigh in on this.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused as why there was no state permit. My understanding is if you're gonna do a forestry, anything over 10 acres, you need a permit from the state forester. And why was that? Why he,
Well, not,
Clearing is 6 acres.
excuse, oh, go ahead.
6 acres of clearing.
Is that what it is? Only 6 acres? Okay, it looks,
but,
all right, okay.
but even if it had crossed that threshold, in theory, or anyway, if your intention is, in logging the property is a change in use, then you're not supposed to obtain a forest cutting plan. In practice, it's violated all the time, as we well know.
Okay, I was thinking-
Someone logs their property and then 6 months later, they put it on the market for sale.
I was thinking it was a much larger area.
Yeah,
All right, so I am in favor of restoration of the violated areas also.
Okay. So ANRAD, and that's gonna be coupled with restoration after the fact filing for all the appropriate permits that should have been filed for.
So do you want to file a notice of intent filing for restoration of the buffer zone? Is that?
That should be a separate.
Right, I mean, there's no provision in an ANRAD to put in that kind of a condition. But if
yeah.
there's an understanding with the landowner that that's what you want him to do, I mean, you could formalize it by issuing an enforcement order if you want to go that far. With which would include in it the requirement to file a notice of intent for restoration of the area.
That's fine by me. I would, let the board weigh in on that. Tony?
So you wanna do an enforcement order?
I'm saying that's an option, I'm not necessarily recommending that.
It's just a vehicle to apply the.
It's a way to formalize it, so that,
Definitely's gotta go that way, in my opinion, because it's gotta be done.
Yep. All right, you're on board
I'm
with
in
that?
favor, I'm in favor of it.
okay,
Alright.
so I'll draft that up. The intention is to continue the hearing anyway, right? What?
It can be, I think it's up to your discretion. The areas that Tom Paragallo had identified really don't impact, constrict the 100-foot buffer zone. If we're respecting the 100-foot buffer zone that we have depicted currently, the vernal pool areas that he's identified and the isolated land subject to flooding areas, those don't impact further into the site. They're behind what's been delineated.
Okay, well, my understanding, Mika, was that you wanted to continue it to review the recommendations in his report.
Correct, yeah, I haven't.
And if you don't think the plans need to be revised, I'd still like then a response to.
We can provide, a
his-
written response to it, because again, we got it at the end of last week.
Right.
And getting in touch with Chuck Karen, I just talked to him
Yes.
this afternoon, so I just to review what his thoughts were.
So, okay, so I would recommend the hearing be continued pending a written response to our peer reviewers, a report. And then before next time, I can have an enforcement order drafted and ready to be signed.
David, how do we become aware of this?
Got a call. I mean, this was a while ago at this point. Might have been.
This is about a year and a half ago, I'd say, probably when
Well,
they.
at least a year. At least a year. I got a call about some clear cutting that had been done down there. Jeff Newton and I, the building inspector, went out and took a look at it, and again, it looked to me like it was more than 6 acres at the time. I thought it was at least 10 acres. I guess I'm not all that good at estimating acres, but again, it was rather a large area. I could see wetlands, but it wasn't clear to me. It would have been a lot of work to go out with a tape measure to determine whether, in fact, there had been encroachment in the buffer zone. So it was decided. Planning got involved. It was decided then, to call the landowner in and work out how this was going to be addressed. And it's just taken that long
Okay.
to finally get this filing.
Do we have any abutters here this evening? No?
And speaking of which, Mika, I need the abutter
Oh,
notification card.
Yes.
Aside from that, I don't have any other things to add.
Okay, motion to continue.
Get a mailing.
Yep,
Motion
that's
to
fine.
continue?
Okay, motion to continue with
To-
those terms,
Yes, to the 12th, September 12th.
September 12th.
Aye.
September 12th?
Aye.
Votes aye. And then we need to do an enforcement order.
So I'll have that drafted. You can sign that next time.
Okay. Do we need to
David-
vote for that tonight?
You could vote tonight, or you could vote on it next time.
That's,
Up to you.
we can
Well,
vote.
you-
If you wanna have it ready.
It's strictly speaking, it's not on the agenda. It's not
Okay,
voting
that's
on
fine.
the
Just have it
enforcement.
ready then for the next meeting.
Now, David, would the restoration be the 50-foot or the 100-foot?
We can talk about that.
And since the timing of it, there's already vegetation starting to grow back in, because it's been a good year and a half, almost 2 years.
So being that no permits were pulled, my expectation would be it would be back to the original buffer zone. Even if you're within, you know, the initial segment of it, there was no permission granted to do what was done. So my inclination, and I let the board weigh in on this, but it would be put back to the way it was before anything was asked of us.
To the 100-foot,
Yeah.
yes.
You concur on that?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
All right, that's continuance. All right.
Okay, pursuant to provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Winchton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Town of Winchton Conservation Commission will hold public hearing on Thursday, August 15, 2019, at 7:20 PM to consider the notice of intent filed by Sunpin Solar Development LLC on behalf of property owner Kevin Doyle for property proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering wetland vegetation at 185 Ballinroll Road. Assessors map 13, lot 4. The project entails construction, operation, and maintenance of a 3.135 megawatt direct current ground-mounted solar polyvoltaic system? Is that,
Photovoltaic.
what is it?
They're gonna-
Photovoltaic.
Okay, system, including access road, perimeter fence, stormwater management, infrastructure, grading, landscaping. The hearing will be held on the fourth floor conference room of the Winchton Town Hall, 109 Front Street. Notice of intent and accompanying documents are available for public view at the Land Use Office, Room 10, first floor, Winchton Town Hall, and Thursdays during hours of 9 to noon, except for 3 to 6 p.m. Or by calling Conservation Agent for appointment.
Thank you, David. Getting fancy with those photovoltaic. words.
Jeez, I guess. That one caught me
The
off.
solar panel.
So, could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Drew Vardakis. I'm an engineer and project manager with AMAC. I should mention our company is now known as Wood, just gone through a business name transfer, same office, same company in Chelmsford. You probably noticed my email signature. So we, as we submitted it, we were AMAC, now we're Wood, just kind of a business item. But Drew Vardakis, engineer in here. Steve Herzog couldn't be here tonight. He is our wetland scientist involved in the delineation. And we're here on behalf of Sunpin. Also, Bill Bailing and Sam Dion could not make it tonight. Kind of a tough night, but we're here on behalf of the applicant to run through the project and answer any questions on the application. And this is my colleague from Wood.
I'm Emily Gardner. I'm an environmental scientist. I helped with the delineation and drafted the NOI.
And do you have any voter
Yes.
cards? Great.
Thank you.
There's business items, we have the green cards and the legal ad check.
Ironic name.
Vardakis
No,
or Wood?
You cut down trees to put up solar panels.
So I can just give a brief walkthrough of the drawings and the project, and then
Please.
we can get us to some specifics if you'd like. And also on behalf of the property owner, Kevin Doyle has been involved in the project very closely, and he is also out of town tonight. So everyone's apologies for that, but
We're really feeling left out.
they would like to be here. If I can listen. You gonna be able to listen to that? Anyway, let's just kind of start talking. So we're at 185 Baldwinville Road.
Oh, I know where it is.
Is that 202?
No.
Hmm?
No,
Not 202?
that's Baldwinville State Road.
No, it's out by Smith Country Trees, right, once you go in.
There's,
Right where the road forks.
Yeah, there's the aerial and locus map on the cover, aren't that great, but there's some figures in the NOI that are much better representation of the site.
Oh, I see.
to a tax map 13, block 125, lot 4. The entire parcel is this funky shaped thing, we call it the pork chop down here, but this whole red area is about 51 acres, and we're mainly focused on the upper part on Baldwinville Road here. So that's just the cover sheet. And, just a little background, we've started permitting with the planning board earlier this year. The project went through a couple minor designs. The wetlands were flagged last summer with Steve and Emily, and Steve mainly was involved with Chuck Karen of Karen Environmental for the field review of the flagging, and that kind of got delayed a little bit over the winter time. But it's my understanding that Chuck's reviewed the most updated plans that you see here, and I'm not sure if he's issued any letters or anything. I haven't seen anything.
I don't think he has, but he has told me that he has reviewed the plans and that they do agree with the revisions that were made on site or agreed to on site.
Yeah, so Steve kind of gave us a briefing before and thought Mr. Karen was all set with the flagging as delineated. So this is that upper northeastern portion of the site, Baldwinville Road on the east here, north facing up. So there was 2 isolated wetlands flagged at the entrance. There's an existing site entrance here. The site is mostly wooded, but has been historically logged. So you'll see in the application there's that aerial photo. This one is a little more tree cover, but over the last 10 to 20 years, Mr. Doyle has been logging the property, so it's pretty thinned out, historically logged. So last summer we went in and did the wetland delineation. There's the residence on the property is up in the northeast corner here, and then there's an existing old logging road enters the site here from east to west. So there's a isolated wetland 1 along the road, central isolated wetland 2, and then a larger bordering vegetated wetland around the perimeter from north to west. So the existing conditions plan essentially shows the wetlands that were flagged last summer. We also did ground topo survey, property survey indicating the property line setbacks and the wetland lines and buffer line setbacks, mainly for the NOI application, also our planning board application. So the next sheet shows the proposed array on it. So again, that same northeastern portion of the property. Logging road entrance here. We're going to utilize that same entrance for the proposed gravel access road. One of the comments in our preliminary meeting with the planning board was to confer with the fire department for access. And originally there was a perimeter road that went all the way around, but there's some steeper areas in the back. So the fire department said they were fine with emergency vehicle access on the entrance where it's wider, and then a 15-foot wide access around the northern perimeter with a turnaround just for pickup truck and maintenance vehicles to the north, and then also to the south on that side. So the array itself, there's a fence, a 7-foot high fence that goes around the array, 7-foot high chain link fence. So the fenced area is about 12.5 acres, and of this upper portion and the lower portion, that's 51 acres or so. The fenced area is about 12, and then the leftover tree cutting, anything that hasn't been cut, tree cutting is about 14 acres, which basically surrounds that fenced area, and then also preserves this isolated wetland in the center. So one of the things that Steve and Chuck had reviewed out there was old historic plans that Mr. Doyle had. He had looked at previous subdivision applications for this property, which never moved forward. So over the years, talking with developers and Sunpin came along, so they're really pushing green energy for this. So as you mentioned, we are cutting trees, but they're really pushing green energy. The site has been logged, so it's not virgin natural forest in here. They're just cutting what's remaining and to install the solar panels. So what you've seen here is the buffer zone. So our work stays out of the buffer zones on the north. We're proposing work in the buffer zone here for this isolated wetland in the center, and then also there was also an off-property wetland down here to the south that we got some points on. So we had some buffer zone impact down there, and then also this entire western part. And this only shows that upper portion of the property, but as you can see, the north and the west portion of this rectangle is pretty wet in through here. So as you continue down, this just goes downhill, and it's all very wet back in through there. So the project is mainly just isolated up on the upper part of the property. So essentially, also we started with planning board. I know the chairman had mentioned peer review. In the field with Karen Environmental, we did do an initial review with Ty and Bond for planning board on our initial design. That has since changed. There were some comments on stormwater. So in this latest revision, we have a stormwater infiltration pond, updated our stormwater report that's in the NOI here. So just, I'm not sure how the review process goes. I know you mentioned that earlier.
Well, yes, my understanding from planning department is that stormwater would be reviewed for the Conservation Commission. But it sounds like there's been at least some degree of review for stormwater.
Yeah, they had seen the original design when it was first submitted. And we had a preliminary, so last summer we started work on this and then had our preliminary meeting.
Yeah, I don't think they would be reviewing, the planning board review would be under the stormwater standards. Was that mentioned at all, do you recall?
I'd have to go back to the original letter, but I believe it was reviewed for planning standards, but also
Probably the low impact development bylaw.
Yeah,
that,
LID,
okay.
And then also, she did have initial comments on the stormwater report, which has since changed, which is included in this.
Okay, well, hopefully it won't be a matter of duplicating anything that's been done already. I just yesterday or today, actually, I requested that Gene provide a proposal for review of the notice of intent, you know, the storm compliance with the stormwater standards in particular. So once I get that from her, I mean, hopefully she'll, you know, remember what, you know, if anything she's already done on this project with regard to reviewing under the stormwater standards. But once I receive her proposal from her, I will forward that to you, and you can let me know if there's anything there that's your understanding has already been done.
She'll probably remember, we've worked with her closely on several other projects in other municipalities, so
Okay.
we're happy to work directly with her and with your involvement as well.
Okay.
So she should be familiar with the project. Again, this is an updated design from what she's seen, so it will be valid whether it's here or planning.
And she would have to review an updated design in any case, so maybe it just won't take quite as long.
So that process did get started earlier this year in February, and then again, as I said, we were waiting for things to melt for the on-site investigation. But essentially, that's an overview of the site and the proposed layout, the buffer zone work. The last few sheets here are just general construction details and notes. We have you know, a cross-section of what the ground-mounted, it's a ground-mounted system. It's not one of those tracking systems. It's a ground-mounted foundation, the south-facing array, and there's a gravel access road, construction entrance, erosion controls, and just general seeding notes, dust control notes. And as part of this too, we develop SWIP for the construction general permit. We're impacting over an acre of disturbance, so we'll have a construction general permit filed, and have a SWIP that details a lot of this stuff much more clearly in the day-to-day operations with our contractors. I think the last sheet, there's some more sections. Yeah, these were the newer details that Ty and Bond probably hadn't seen, was our infiltration basin pond design. Then I think there was some comments on planning on the fence and for, you know, having a gap at the bottom of the fence to have critters go through. So there was some chain link fence details and gate details, and other stormwater feature details that were added since the last time we were with the planning board. So essentially that was the course of action. Planning board was kind of on hold until we got here with you folks and went through reviews as needed with Karen, Ty and Bond, and then field any questions, discussion, you know, public comment, and then eventually seek an order of conditions, and then return to the planning board for any other outstanding issues.
All right. David, do you have any more comments?
I do.
We'll start with you, and then we'll have the board.
In addition to the wetland boundary, so the 50, 75, and 100-foot setbacks are being shown, correct?
Correct.
So, and before I ask my next question, it looks like there's actually 5 isolated wetlands on the site or that are jurisdictional. There's the WE series, the WH series, the WG series, the WF series, and the WE series. It looks like.
Yes, and I believe we'd have to refer back to Mr. Karen's letters and Mr. Herzog's investigations, but I recall one of the comments was to call out IVW 1 and 2 as we have, and then also include the other IVWs as that greater BVW, so that we didn't have separate buffer zones in the back. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I think during the review process, Steve had mentioned that the reviewer thought there could be hydrologic connections between the isolated wetlands, and so it would be, these were in kind of like this the logging trails kind of form.
Yes.
Kind of coming down the slope, so he thought that there were isolated connections and that it would just be all considered one bordering vegetated wetland.
Even though they weren't mapped and delineated in the field and shown on the plans, it said that there could be connections.
Yeah, that would be,
Between them.
I mean, I could go back to Steve to get clarification.
Well, Mr. Karen has reviewed the plan, and he said that it agrees with what he agreed to on site with the applicant's consultant. I'll go back and double check with him. But in any case, it looks like there is encroachment into the 75-foot no build and 50-foot no disturb setback under the town of Winchton Wetlands Protection Bylaw in a number of locations. Maybe the first thing to do is if we could sort of just review where those are, and so that everyone has a pretty good idea.
So it might be easier to see. So up here, here's the, just for example, on BBW1 up on the north here, the WJ series, all the triangles are the wetland flags and they're connected by a dash line. So the first buffer line out is, excuse me, the 50-foot no disturb buffer. And then that middle line out is the 75-foot no build buffer. And then the final buffer line would be the 100-foot buffer line. So that's kind of your 1, 2, 3 buffer zone lines there. So we're proposing work in those areas, mainly for the central isolated wetland there. Going back with Mr. Doyle too in previous plans, I didn't recall this being a wetland in years past. This may have formed with, as Emily mentioned, the logging or the skidder trails. However, Chuck and Steve agreed that should be flagged and notated as an isolated wetland. So we're proposing work in those buffer zones, the 75 and 100-foot buffer zones here around that isolated wetland. Then also on the western side, where the stormwater basin is here, and then these panels through on the western side over here.
So waiver requests will be required for work in those areas.
That's assuming it's approved, David.
Right, but it's part of the filing.
Right.
A request for waivers to work in the 75-foot no build and 50-foot no disturb. And with justification, why it's believed that those waivers are justified.
Okay.
So the other thing that I don't seem to see on the plans is the limit of permanent clearing. I mean, I know it's already, fairly clear out there because of the intensive logging over the years, but I mean, there's got to be some sort of, both pre and post-development limit of clearing. I guess it's less important to show the existing conditions than to show the limit of permanent clearing, post-development. I think that really needs to be shown.
Yeah, it's just difficult to see. We've.
Have I missed it?
No, it's
Multiple
very,
lines
very easy to
overlaid.
miss, very many
Okay.
lines overlapping each other. There's
Okay.
I'm trying to find a good spot. There's a TC line that stands for tree cutting.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is the boundary of the tree cutting. But there's also an LOW limit of work line, which surrounds the ultimate outer perimeter limit of work. Yeah, the 11 by 17s are impossible. So if it's helpful to the commission or anyone else, we've tried to do this on separate plans where one plan is colored or shaded for tree cutting, or it's, there's a backdrop of shaded, of what's being cut. It's just hard to depict with so much going on with the flagging and the panels. And there's also this SV is the sediment barrier, which goes around the perimeter of the site as well. So
Okay.
it's just mainly a readability, clarity issue that we're constantly working on.
David, do you have anything else? Or?
Yes, one more thing. One of the issues that we've had with these solar arrays, and it's happened a number of times, where, again, there's a limit of permanent clearing shown on the plans, but I guess once, and the order of conditions is based on a plan showing a certain limit of clearing. But once I guess the applicant, the solar array developer has gone back and taken a closer look, and maybe it's when they've looked at it with the, the general contractor and subcontractors, they've decided, or they've realized that, especially for purposes of shade maintenance, they actually needed to go closer to the wetlands than what was shown on the approved plans, and then they've had to come back for an amended order of conditions with a revised set of plans with the commission, and that puts both the commission and the planning board in a very difficult position, especially if there's been a lot of, in the commission's view anyway, concessions based on waiving the 75 and/or 50-foot setback. So, can you assure the commission that won't happen this time? That the limit of clearing that we're seeing on the plan, including for shade maintenance, is what in fact will ultimately be the case?
Yeah, we've seen that in other communities and other projects as well. Most commonly, what we've seen is that's included in the order, is that the approved and permitted limit of work or limit of clearing has to be field marked, prior to construction, just as you would install the erosion controls, and everything has to be pre-marked and marked out and held to. But I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm happy to have that conversation with them and make sure they're fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, for now.
So in looking at the drawings here, I can see, the island that we have, it's IVW number 2, and then it seems on the, must be the west side. Where's the?
Yeah, north
Yep.
north
Yes.
is up, so
Oh, right, thank
east
you.
and west, yeah.
So I'm of the mind that I'm not going to support a waiver. You would need, in my mind, you're going to need to do your work outside of the buffer zones. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I'm not going to support a waiver.
Well, at least the setbacks that require the waivers.
What's that?
The setbacks that require the waivers, what about working in between 75 and 100 feet?
I'm just not sure about this moving forward. We just talked about the whole shading issue, and I think this would be an easy way to solve that problem, is just to have them stay out of the buffer zones, and they can do their trimming, against the buffer zone, as opposed to going up tight like we've done in the past. But I'm not going to support any waivers for this project.
Is that So, may I ask a question?
Yep.
Is that solely for panels, or is that for any work? Is that cutting?
No panels in the buffer zones at all. That would be, I'm just not gonna support that.
What about cutting?
I think trimming would be fine, but not cutting. That's just my take on it, but I'm gonna allow the rest of the board to weigh in. Tony?
I'm glad I'm not the bad guy this time.
Yeah.
Well, it's my understanding that the 50-foot no disturb,
Right.
there's no way I'm giving a waiver for that. The 50 to 75, it's my understanding that they can clear that and make lawn or whatever, right?
Right, but no permanent structures.
Exactly. I would be in favor of everything out of the 50 to 75, because there's no permanent structure,
In the panels.
the panels. In, you know, as far as the 50 to 75, to cut your trees down, because that's within our jurisdiction for the shade and this and that, but any structure within inside the 75 to 100, I mean, 50 to 75 would be no go with me.
Yeah. You good?
Yep.
David?
I'll agree with Tony that you gotta stay outside the 50-foot on the structures. I have a question, what is here?
Oh, that's a steeper slope.
So I was wondering, if it's a ridge or something?
I'm sorry?
A ridge, a real steep?
Yeah, there's a lot of tight contours in there, so as part of our initial site analysis, there's slope constraints to the racking system. If you get going on the steeper slopes, the installation for the foundations can be very difficult.
Okay.
There's limitations.
All right, so you just, okay,
So
all
we're
right.
avoiding steep slopes, long
Okay.
story short.
I just, it seemed odd, you can't see the contour lines or
Yeah,
anything,
it's a
so.
steep slope.
Okay, so I would agree with my colleague that you gotta stay outside of the 50 on your structures.
Outside of 75.
75 rather on your structures, and you can trim up to the 50.
Yeah, I just, trying to avoid scenarios that we've had in the past where we've had people come back and ask for things that we're not, I don't want to go down that road again.
Yeah, understand. This is our first project in town, same with the applicant, so I'm happy to go back to them and have these conversations, but it was more of a, open forum just to see, how the town operates. Have you had, previous solar projects?
More than we'd like to hear about.
Yeah, and that's why we gotta
Yeah.
dig in, because that 50 to 75, it just seems like we let you go in, and then they're coming back, well, we gotta do the shade, like David said. And so now it's just stay outside the no build, and that'll give you an extra 25 feet of, clearing.
Do we have any butters here this evening? Would you like to speak, sir? If you would like to speak, we just need to identify yourself, and you have to come down to a mic. Thank you, I'm sorry. You can use a mic there, or
There's
if
this
you
one
want.
here if you want.
Demetrius Karas at 192 Baldwinville. So it's right across the road from where there's look like maybe it's old fire road or something. I haven't had a chance to study the maps. I was curious about the setback from Baldwinville Road.
Yeah, it's a 40-foot property line setback. That's based on the planning board zoning.
And I think that's probably the sketch line. Right
Yep.
here.
The fence on the roadside, or is the fence all around the property, does that include like a privacy barrier? Is that what,
Could be put in, that's a good idea.
It's a chain link fence.
so they're gonna, this road, you can see the panels from the road?
We did have a site walk with the planning board, because that was a concern of some of the abutters. We did walk the road. There is existing vegetation from the road to the property line, and then again from the property line to where the fence is gonna be. So there are some taller trees in there, so that was a concern that we did talk about. Obviously, hasn't been finalized yet, but there was talk of having some plantings around the corner to to mitigate views from neighbors that, again, has not been finalized, but that had been discussed.
Okay. So,
Will the trees in that 40-foot buffer be left alone, or?
Correct.
yep,
Thank you. Do you have anything?
thank you.
Identify yourself.
Yeah, you need to come up, I'm sorry.
My name's Alicia Dwyer from 192 Baldwinville Road, and so I'm curious also because we live right across the street, and I just wanted to know, is the fence at the 40-foot? Is that the perimeter of the array?
Yeah, so so this PL is the property line. This is the road.
Yep.
And then there's a little gap from the road to the property line. And then there's 40 feet to this dashed line. So this is that existing entrance.
Oh,
you
yeah,
see.
okay. Mm-hmm.
So this dash line is the 40 feet. So from the road, that's probably another 20 feet plus 40 feet. And then the road, the new road, is 15 feet. So there's almost 100 feet from the road edge to where the panels are.
And so these trees that are currently there now, they will stay?
Correct.
Okay. And so there's an access road from into here?
Correct.
Okay. Is it the one that's already there, or are you building a new one?
That's the one that's already there.
And is it going to be dirt, or is it going to be?
Yeah, it's crushed stone. It's basically what's there. It's larger crushed stone at the entrance, mainly for erosion control, for construction, to shake off any sediment that's tracked from the site, and then just a compacted crushed gravel access road.
So from the road, from that gap, you'll see the panels? Will they be raised above the fence?
The fence is about 7 feet high, and the top of the panels varies around 8 feet high. But then there's a gate at the entrance there, chain link fence.
So for the construction of this project, is that the entrance? So the trucks will be going in and out on Baldwinville Road in that?
Correct.
How long will the construction take?
It hasn't been determined at this point, but on similar projects, it can vary. I'm not sure if you called it out in the application, but it can range 4 to 6 months, depending on the season and subcontractors and various factors. But those items haven't been determined yet.
So make it 8 to 12.
Yeah, right.
A lot of times it's not constant. One contractor comes in and does the trees, then they gotta wait for someone to.
Oh, I
come in, you know,
understand.
It's always broken.
Just
up.
the ongoing project.
Right,
That's, I
yeah.
want to have a window of what it would mean. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right.
My recommendation is the commission vote a motion on, the redesign according to what you want in terms of, abiding by the setbacks.
In terms of that too, David, I mean, as we're going back and forth, I'm hearing about data that we're not seeing, or information we're not seeing. So I'm not sure if we really want to make a full decision tonight anyways. Is this the definitive? I mean, I heard some question in your voice earlier about connectivity between a couple of areas and a lot, logging paths. So if we're not seeing everything that's actually depicted, or
Yeah, I don't think though, and that is information that I want to have or at least confirm. But if my understanding is correct, that won't affect buffer zone lines. That sort of those, if there are any hydrological connections, those are internal
Right,
to
those are captured within the buffer zone.
the buffer zones that we're seeing. I mean, again, it's something for the sake of thoroughness we should understand.
well, with these projects being very large scale, I think it's better for us to be fully aware of everything that's around and have all the information in front of us to make the best decision possible. This is a large scale project. I think we just need to make sure that we have all the details ahead of time before we make any final decisions, so.
Well, and you can still go back and inform your client that, as an advisory opinion, that this is what the commission is going to want to see in terms of compliance with the setbacks under the bylaw.
Yep, happy to have that conversation. I don't see any issues with a redesign on removing panels here and there to abide. That's just my opinion, but we will have that
Well, it'll have to be more than
conversation.
just the panels, have to get the infiltration basin out of the 50-foot no disturb.
Agreed, so there will be some redesign items, none of which I doubt they'll have any issues with.
Well, then maybe we need to hold off on the stormwater review then, until we get revised plans.
So that would apply to, the basin, as a structure, you mean?
Well, just again, the plan in general, I mean, again, I like to ask the peer reviewer to examine the most recent plans, and if they're gonna change, that's what I'd like to give her.
Sure.
Well, I think, David, as well, that activity is very close to, what we just talked about, not having anything in. So I think having that out of that area would be ideal. Would you guys agree? That it's right in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not quite sure I follow you.
Yeah, me neither.
If you look at the, you've got the 100 and the 50, it's right, it's kind of on, the 50 is kind of going through it.
Oh, okay, you're looking at, okay.
Yeah, that like kidney-shaped pond.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, yeah, get that out of the 50-foot setback, right?
Well, I'm considering that a structure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so get it out of the 75?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't quite.
Yeah,
realize
that's, just make sure the plan encompasses that. And then we can talk about it again when we have new plans. Is there anything else?
that. So when do you think you can have revised plans, any idea?
When is your next meeting?
September 12th.
Yeah, we can definitely have plans by then.
Okay.
Probably, most likely sooner.
And, yeah, get them to me just as soon as you can, then I can.
Yeah, advanced review. September 12th.
Okay, motion to continue to 9/12.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion for a 5-minute recess? Do we?
No, you can,
All right.
Well, yeah, I think you should.
he's the chair, he
He's
can
already
take a
leaving.
recess.
reconvening from our recess.
Okay, pursuant to provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Winchton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Winchton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 15, 2019, at 7:30 PM to consider the notice of intent filed by property owners 580 River Street LLC for bordering work in, proposed for work in bordering land subject to flooding, 100-year floodplain, the riverfront area at River Street, assesses map 4, lot 61, parcel 109, and map 4C dash lot 2. The project entails capping and the former Marbody landfill pursuant to Massachusetts Solid Waste Regulations 301 CMR 19. The hearing will be held at 4th floor conference room of the Winchton Town Hall, 109 Front Street. The notice for intent and accompanying documents are available at the public view at the Land Use Office, Room 10, first floor, of the Winchton Town Hall on Wednesdays and Thursdays during the hours of 9:30 to noon, except from 3 to 6 p.m. on meeting nights or by calling agent for appointment. I'm getting tired.
It's getting late. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Can you identify yourselves, please?
My name is Bruce Haskell from Langdon Environmental, and I'm Dwight Dunk from Epsilon Associates.
So what are you guys looking to do?
I'll give you a quick explanation here, and you can answer whatever questions you have. This is a good spot to set up.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, this is on the former Mavardi gravel pit off of River Street. Yep. So, 580 River LLC is the owner, so essentially the owner of that. On that property back in the late 70s, early 80s, through about 87, 88, there was a construction demolition waste landfill that was operated. It was shut down through a process with the town around 1988, and it's remained inactive since that time. It's about 14 acres in size. It's located on the northern part of the site. So just to orient you, this is River Street here, the property line here, Miller's River, the large Army Corps property running along here. So it's the very northern part of their gravel pit. They have a fairly large, probably about 100-acre gravel pit that moves further to the south. There's no work that's going to be proposed as part of that. Under state solid waste regulations, there's a requirement to cap any old landfill that operated after 1971. This operated until about 88, so it has to be capped, and it's being required to be capped by Mass DEP 310 CMR 19 regulations out there. So what we're here today to do is to talk about, obviously we're near the Miller's River. We have some wetlands associated with that. Dwight's the wetland scientist. He'll talk about the wetland impacts, and then we can talk about the project and what we're looking to do. Essentially, the project is to bring in some fill material to regrade the site out there, construct stormwater basins required by the regulations to handle the appropriate storms, and then to construct a final cap. And just so you know, the final cap will be 6 inches of sand, a 40 mil plastic membrane, so it's probably about that thick out there. That will be on top of it. That gets seamed and covered a cap. And the idea of that is it keeps all the rain from going into the landfill waste and out towards the river in this case. And a sand layer, 6-inch sand layer, and then a topsoil layer there. The final use of the site has not been determined, but it will be a grassed hill, type of surface. If you see capped landfills, they're grassed hills out there. The Mardis will work with the town if they want to use it as open space or whatever the future purpose of the site might be. One component I want to just talk about quickly is there's some fill that's going to be brought in. You see from the grades, the site is fairly hummocky. The site some fill is going to be brought in, historic fill from Boston, different projects, and placed on the site to clean up the site, clean up the grades, and to raise the grades and to sort of help to fund some of the money for the final cap for the site out there. And we get into a lot more details about that, but I'll turn it over to Dwight who can talk about the wetland resources that are out there.
Yeah, and just before we start, just the proof of mailing.
Oh, thank you.
For the abutters. Yes, and as Bruce mentioned, I'm a professional wetland scientist with Epsilon Associates. We went out and flagged a little over a year ago. And basically, we have the Miller's River, so we have to flag the top bank, where much of it is just top bank, and we have a couple of bordering vegetated wetlands that are bordering right on the river. So we have a forested wetland here, and then a fringe of forested wetland along the river. And other than that, it's mostly inland bank that confines the river. Then, below the low water, it's land underwater. We have the 100-year floodplain that we've identified in pink on the plan here. It's elevation 852 plus, and what that comes from is the reason there's a fraction there is just because it's the floodplain was provided in AGBD when we convert that to NABD, which is the base of these plans, so it gets to be a 0.25 there. But we have the 100-year floodplain, and with the Millers River, we have the 200-foot riverfront area. That's off the top of the bank, and then the 100-foot buffer zone off of the inland bank and the BVW. Throughout the area in here, as we described in the notice of intent, we looked at some areas that had some pockets, probably, with the earthworking that's occurred out there over the years, scraping down and, to pretty close to the seasonal high groundwater, or areas that basically where there's mounds of material that then cause a little bit of flooding. We looked at those, and they're described in the notice of intent with, some plots that we did not find those to be isolated vegetated wetlands subject to the bylaw. So, we note them in the description. They're shown on the last figure in our figure packet, but we don't show them on the drawings since we've determined they were not jurisdictional. The work within resource areas, we have some work within the riverfront area. The total work within the riverfront area is a little over 20,900 square feet. The work within the inner is just about 6 feet of the grading extends into the inner riverfront area. Basically, that crosses that 100-foot offset. And that's 480 square feet, and the balance of 20,430 square feet is in the outer. We also have a small area of BLSF that gets filled up in this corner. And as described in the notice of intent, the filling is about 165 square feet with 255 cubic feet of filling. And then we've adjusted the grading just to the, basically to the west, so that we have a little bit more than 1-to-1 compensatory flood storage. So we've met that standard. This has been filed under the landfill closure limited project. So we didn't run through the riverfront area performance standards because we've met all the performance standards for the landfill. We've shown the alternatives that there really are, the alternative here is to cap the landfill. And we're also, one of the primary performance standards in the landfill limited project standard is that compensatory flood storage. So we still need to meet the 1057 standard of providing compensatory flood storage on at least a 1-to-1 basis, so we've provided that. Standard sedimentation erosion control measures are proposed during construction, sediment barriers around the perimeter. While materials are being placed, areas that are not worked for more than 30 days would have temporary erosion control to, try to, not to make sure that those soils aren't eroded off. If it's not going to be worked, if it's active construction, then it's an active construction area. And a wheel, stabilized entrance for, wheels for the trucks in and out. And then for the long term, as Bruce mentioned, it's going to be graded, and we have the proposed detention basins, one down in this corner, one up here, to provide to meet all the performance standards for the stormwater management standards. We've run through to show all those are met. The one that obviously doesn't make sense for a landfill closure is the infiltration. The whole purpose of this is to basically put an umbrella over the waste, so we don't have the water infiltrating through the waste, so we don't meet that standard, but we've met all the other standards.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that's the summary of the impacts and the mitigation measures and.
Over the project.
Questions.
That's it.
All right. David, why don't you start?
So actually, if you could continue holding that up.
Sure. Yeah,
So-
the easel,
Yes, thank you. So what is the actual work that's being done in the Commissioner's jurisdiction, which I assume is pretty much the same throughout the site? I haven't had too much of a chance to review the notice of intent, but
Sure.
it looks like it's taking material out first, and then putting in the barrier, and then putting the material back in, and then regrading.
Actually,
I was gonna say, the areas of work is this corner here of
Riverfront.
about
Yes.
20,000 square feet.
Yes.
In riverfront area.
Yeah.
Where the closest, I'll let you describe it, but the closest it would be 94 feet from the river. So it's maintaining a undisturbed natural buffer of nearly 100 feet. And then this little corner here of BLSF, and I will let Bruce describe the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that's happening out there is, I mean, so all the areas that we're disturbing within the jurisdictional areas are areas that were historically landfilled back in the 70s and 80s. So what would happen essentially is, there's some trees and things that have grown up, they would be stripped down. The waste so the area might be regraded a little bit to be appropriate slopes in that area. The cap is put down, the cap's about 2 feet thick in total, with all the different layers that go on. That'll be put down, be keyed in at the edge, and put back into that grade. So there's some, minor filling, but again, we would compensate with any filling within the floodplain to do that, just to get that cap in place out there.
But I mean, don't you have to dig down into the existing grade, lower than the existing grade, to put that cap in?
At the very edge of the cap, I could show you the plan, there's an anchor trench that comes in, so the cap comes down and digs down. That's a trench, it's about 2 feet deep, that goes around the entire outside perimeter of the landfill. But everything else on the landfill gets built up from existing grade. The grades get smoothed out and made even, but they don't do that. There's not a reduction of this top slope to, in those areas to put the cap in, because, we have to have a place to put the material we pulled out of there, and things like that. So it's really just placing it over the existing grade. Where it gets tight a little bit on this site is, the property line pretty much mirrors the edge of the project. So there is it's discussed in the notice of intent, some, ability, we may end up having to pull material back out there, and then there's a maximum slope, so we may end up be forced to pull some material back. But we haven't really identified any specific area where that might be, once you get the trees cleared and everything.
Okay, so the cap essentially goes over the existing grade, as is with this anchor trench.
Around that perimeter, within those jurisdictional areas. There are areas that are being filled that's, be outside of the jurisdiction, but within the jurisdictional areas, that's essentially what's there.
And that trench is just shown on sheet D3, that's included with the notice of intent.
Right.
Do we have any butters here this evening? If either one of you would like to speak, or both of you, we just want you to come over here to this chair with a microphone.
Robert Lundeen, 596 River Street. My questions for you is what are you filling it with?
So the fill is, it's called grading and shaping materials. This is outlined in the documents. It's historic fill from the city of, like Boston, Cambridge, that kind of area. It can be street sweepings, catch basin cleanings.
Chemicals?
Well, it is all tested, so before it comes in, it's tested, and it meets requirements that are been set by Mass DEP for this particular application. There's probably 30 landfills that have taken this kind of material out there in the state, maybe even more that have taken this and done the same kind of process out there. And there's a series of policies you have to go through, but everything comes in pre-tested, it's approved. There's a whole series of approvals that have to go through forward out there.
Can I get documentation of that approval?
We can get documentation. I think we can provide you with some information.
Where I'm going is I don't want this to turn into another W.R. Grace.
Oh, no, okay, I understand.
You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. So,
Secondly,
yeah.
how many yards of fill are you bringing in?
So the total amount of fill that's going to be brought in is about 400,000 cubic yards of fill over that whole area.
Okay, my next question is, who's gonna repair the roads that these trucks are gonna destroy, bring them through the town?
Again, there's some discussion with the town about that. Let me just say that we are, the limit, and again, this will be outside of the jurisdiction, but the limit is, this site was approved for 40 trucks a day. You know, that's one being one truck in, one truck out. There's a gravel pit. That is a limit that we have established for this project. So
We didn't see 40 trucks from anybody down that road
Yeah,
a day.
not even close.
So if you want to speak, you just need to come up and identify yourself. Thank you.
Come on up, Gus.
My name's Gus Costa, I live at 605. We don't see nearly that many trucks going through there.
I can't speak for that.
Yeah.
Historically, I think there was a lot of, there's a lot of material that got moved out of that site back in the past, but
Yeah.
I know probably now that's not the case, yes.
Yeah.
I've been there 20 years.
I've been there 22, not even close.
I think you may have misunderstood his statement. It's been approved for 40 trucks, doesn't mean you're gonna see 40
Okay,
trucks.
that's all I'm trying to clarify.
Our body has
Yeah.
had the approval for the 40 trucks prior to
To
this.
go through. But
Right.
we're gonna see a lot more than 40 trucks
think
going
so.
through there.
We-
I mean,
Not
I don't know.
Phil?
I mean, yeah, I don't.
Coming in?
No, we.
It's not gonna come in one day.
No, I
No.
just want to be clear, we have established, and we established that in all the filings we've made, that the 40 trucks that's the limit that we're gonna work with.
Per day.
Okay, per day.
Per
And it's
day.
40 truck, one truck in, one truck out is one truck. I mean, it's not, it's 40 trucks.
Right.
coming in. It's not
Because
a
that
round
road's
trip.
already in rough shape since it was done over for the sewer line.
Okay.
And we've had breaks in the lines, repairs done, and now we got sinkholes everywhere.
So one of the things that I would suggest is a conversation with the DPW about that. And tonight, basically, we work under a certain amount of jurisdiction. And outside the property itself is really, for our board, we don't go beyond what the property is. So to speak to the road concerns, that's something that you would want to take up with one of the other entities, and that would be the DPW. Certainly, I think that would be, a worthwhile discussion, a concern to bring up to him. And, but in terms of our purview, it pertains specifically to the boundaries of the property. And certainly, we're very glad that you guys decided to come tonight, because it's not that often that we get people that come in to talk about these things.
And I
So
apologize for some of my questions, it's just some of them, the answer is just escalated to the next question, to the next question.
that's fine. No, that's fine. You're in a butter, and obviously, you're gonna be living next to this, and,
And this is the only board that's going to be, making or reviewing this project, right? You don't have to file with planning board.
No, we don't have to file for any other approvals.
So this is really the only opportunity that, people have.
And how long do they,
I just want to clarify though, I think it goes without saying, but the shaping and grading material is placed, then on top of that is the sand layer, then the cap, the plastic cap, and then above that is more sand, clean sand and topsoil. So these materials that are fill materials that cannot exceed certain levels, otherwise they're not accepted, are under the cap.
so is it safe to say that this Boston soil is not desirable soil for anything but what goes underneath a tarp?
Generally, it's soil that, they filled Boston, they just filled Boston, right? So it's soil that's not structurally appropriate to support
Okay.
anything out there. And when they build things in Boston, one of the sites I've seen recently is, it's in Kendall Square.
Mhm.
It's the center of Kendall Square, and they're going down like 70 feet. So, to build a parking garage. It's a crazy amount of material. That all has to go somewhere. So, you're not gonna take it to somebody's home and put it there.
Right.
You're not gonna this is a good location to take it, and because you can't build anything on top of this. It's just.
In terms of where it goes, though, it's gonna be underneath that membrane is where this ends up.
Right,
And the stuff on top of the membrane is more of,
It's clean sand, so it's essentially, it's natural sand,
Mhm.
and it's topsoil. The topsoil can be, manufactured out of organics, but that's all tested, and it's at levels that are below what you could put on your, in other words, if you could safely, if you had it tested, put this topsoil on your property.
And as Bruce, you know, the example that Bruce mentioned in terms of a Kendall Square going down 70 feet, it's structural, you know, the structural material, but when you start getting down that deep in some of those areas, you're actually then getting into natural soils. You know, but it's just, it needs to be disposed of somewhere, so it's not that it's all fill material or, you know, whatnot, but you start getting into that deep, you're actually getting to the, below the fill materials into the native materials in some, at some sites.
This is not a town property, this is privately held.
Yeah, I wondered about that myself. I mean,
How is this not owned by the town?
well, I don't know, strictly speaking, it's outside the commission's jurisdiction, but did this need some kind of a permit to be used as a landfill?
So,
That-
it has I wasn't involved in this, at this time, but from reading the history, and maybe some of the abutters might know better than me, there was an attempt to permit this as a landfill. And at that point, the town board of health, I believe, said it's okay to permit as a landfill. And then a zoning board of, there was some other decision and it got turned down. So there was initially a desire to build a fairly large, a much larger landfill than what's shown here out there. And there were plans for that, and it was turned down. It went through some kind of process. The town prevailed in turning it down, and that was the end of it. But they were left with 14 acres of material that had been received in that interim timeframe there. So it was it did have approvals. Back then, the approvals were much less than what they would be today. Certainly, you know, to go through. But it had some approvals, and at some point, it got stopped out there. But it is entirely privately held. It's never been related to the town, town operation, to my knowledge.
Now, how many feet are you filling in to get to
So,
grade?
so in the middle areas there, the two mounds, it's going up about 25 feet. No, on the two mounds, the 25 feet, plus or minus out there. And there's some piles out there that it's going up maybe 10 feet over.
And how close to the Miller's River is that going?
So it's the blue line there, or
This is the river here. The closest that the grading is showing is 94 feet from the river.
94 feet from the river, and it's gonna be roughly 25 feet in height?
No, at the river, it's only, at this point, these are 3-to-1 grades, so each contour is showing it's going up 1 foot, 3 horizontal. So at this river here, it's pretty much close to the high points are over here.
Yeah, so from the river, it's not gonna change at the actual river elevation where it matches that. It goes up, right now it goes up probably 35, 40 feet already. If you go back to the river, there's a 35, 40 foot slope from the property line up, and then it's going up, probably another.
So none of this material's gonna wash away with rain or anything and get into the river?
There's stormwater swales all throughout the outside that will direct it to the base, so if anything erodes, it will direct it to the basin. Those are maintained during construction to do that. There's a requirement with any larger earthquake projects like this to do daily inspections of the swales, monthly inspections, report to DEP. They're pretty highly regulated under the solid waste regulations, in addition to the Conservation Commission.
I have one final question. Sure. How long is this project projected to take?
The delivery materials are projected to take 2 years, and then the capping, a construction season after that's a year, but however that falls out there. So about 3 years.
That's a lot of material.
Oh my God.
So,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. All right, looks like we have another abutter.
I'm the only good one. I live on the corner of right Hale and River Street, right at Maid Body's entranceway. We've been put up with a bunch of stuff for years and years and years. And I don't think it's fair. Now we gotta have 20 trucks or 40 trucks.
Well, I think the alternative is that we've got a piece of property that is obviously, in the state's mind, in need of some attention. And I understand it's not ideal, what has to be done. But the way the property sits right now, as I understand it, what's being put in front of us is the state wants them to execute certain things, right? So as the property sits right now, in the state's mind, it's not suitable. You don't agree? I'm trying to understand, I understand that there's gonna be an unideal timeframe where vehicles.
They brought things in before, and I was outside, and it smelled awful. We had to have a whole neighborhood together to stop it. Imagine what's gonna happen now.
So are you referring to when the landfill was active?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So.
Then they crunched my corner there, I had water coming in the back there, kinda the trucks doing it,
Okay.
and it's all cracked around there.
So this is when the land.
Maybe say, oh, it's rain, it's not the rain, it's the trucks, and the town should be paying for that road to be done. Maybe should be paying for that road to be done.
So what you're referring to is when the landfill was active, when they were actually putting things in the landfill. How long ago was that?
Oh, there was all kinds of stuff there. Then you wanna make a demolition dump.
I understand, but I'm asking how long ago was that?
Well, it started off with one or two little trucks there, wasn't before
Okay.
anybody's had it.
Okay.
It's not like this big project.
Okay. Well, we certainly appreciate your input, but I think unfortunately in the state's mind, which if there's a state regulation that requires them to do this, that authority trumps our authority. But I certainly would encourage you to talk to the DPW director if you're concerned about the road. That is, or the select board. Or the select board. Go to the select board. I understand that, but just talking about it isn't gonna get anything done. If you want to do something about it, see the select board or go to the DPW. Those are your options. This entity, the Conservation Commission, has no jurisdiction over the roads. We certainly appreciate you coming here tonight to talk about this.
In 2 years of this, more trucks coming down there?
Again, if the state has a certain set of parameters that they're looking for, and this property needs to be brought into that, that is outside of our
Not
call.
concerned about the rivers and that goes
Well,
into
they're gonna
Apple
cap
and
it.
stuff?
They're gonna cap the property.
Should make it better.
Yeah, it's gonna make it better. So,
Have there been any discussions with the town about, the town hiring someone to sort of monitor the overall project at the applicant's expense? Compliance?
Not to my knowledge, but I can check, and it's been conversation with the town that I may not be aware of. I can check and see what that is, but I'll make a.
I believe that is done sometimes in these kind of projects where the town, the applicant funds the town to hire someone to monitor the overall project, and not just compliance with any one particular.
I'll check to see if those conversations, if anything to that effect has been had.
okay. All right. Are there any other butters that wish to speak?
I actually have another question.
Sure, just come down.
Now, the material you said you were putting in can't be built on, correct?
A house, is a structure, yeah,
Structures.
a building.
So say, once this project's done, Maybody's is retiring, is shutting down, what's gonna happen of this? They're gonna turn it into development, build houses?
No.
No, they cannot.
They cannot. No, they strictly, I'm sorry.
So they can't build any structures on that property once it's filled in?
So the only uses of landfills like this are, are passive open space recreation. You put athletic fields on top of them. I don't think that this is a good, necessarily a good location for that. Or solar panels. Those are the only real types of, so the most structure you'd ever see would be solar panels, if that was.
They had the exact same thing on the opposite side of the street that Mayberry had, and that's all solar field. That was filled in and solar field was put in there.
Right, so you could do things like that, but not a, so first of all, because it's a landfill, any kind of residential usage or anything like that, you couldn't do. And the expense of building on top of this with any kind of, putting a real structure, an office building, something else like that, I mean, you would just go somewhere else to do
I
that.
just wanted to make sure it's
Oh,
not
yeah,
gonna
no,
turn
there's
into
no-
a housing development down, 10 years down the road.
No, so there's a notice on the deed that goes to this property that restricts any kind of use of the property without DEP approval. Again, and restricts residential use specifically. So that's on the property. So anybody purchasing this property 30 years from now anything like that, we'll look at that and go, I can't do, that I'm limited on that little corner of what I can do with the property there.
Yeah, so basically it's dead land.
Yes, for that purpose, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to know.
All right, thank you.
So it'll be a solar farm in 30 years.
Yeah.
I'd be curious about that, though,
Totally possible.
in terms of the membrane, though, and, with how they mount the panels. I just don't, and it looks to me, though, the grades there are pretty substantial.
Oh, they're pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry
Right.
to interrupt you.
No, that's all right, but I'm thinking in terms of like logistics of panels being installed at a site like that where you've got a decent grade, and if you can't,
So there are ways to sort of,
anchor them.
Put anchor panels, like a sort of up and down the grades. They're more expensive than putting them on a flat surface out there to do that on the cap. But nothing penetrates the cap. Everything is done with typically concrete ballast blocks. So everything, instead of, it's typical, if I just had a solar field that's building in the field, I drive poles into for the panels. These are, they build concrete blocks and then they build them up from there.
I
And
see.
the concrete provides the ballast or the weight for that. So I mean, again, it's not, and I'm not saying that's, I'm not sure that's what.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is, I think they prefer flat surfaces anyways, but,
But a large portion of the property is south facing,
Yes.
so it'd be a good, and from that standpoint, it'd be a good place for a solar array.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is one of the potential uses out here, down the road. One of the big questions is what's the incentives for solar 3 years from now, and sometime down the road.
yeah, they're going down right now, so. Okay, any comments from the board? I think we've taken the butters. David, you've spoken, but the board has not yet. Do you want to start this time, David? Tony? No? Okay. This evening was preliminary, or are we looking for a
Yeah,
vote?
No, the hearing has to be continued, and then, again, a peer review. Yes, so, as soon as I receive that, I will forward that to you. And so, yeah, motion for a continuance to September 12th.
Motion to continue.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, September 12th. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you very much.
Good evening.
You too.
All right. Is Paul here this evening?
Sorry?
Is Paul here this evening?
No, he's not, I'm not sure.
He's not hurting my feelings, I'm just, was curious. Hey.
Let me just check the minutes from last time. 'Cause
He
I
was-
spoke to Paul last,
I thought we weren't putting him on.
Yeah.
you're correct, it was continued to September 12th.
Well, that was a nice gift, we can just move right on.
I
All right.
apologize, but Paul told me last week he was gonna be here, so.
Well, that's fine, because we're running along anyways, that's just as well.
Yeah.
So, we can go right into old business. And it looks like the only thing we have is 55 Island
And
Road.
then we have some new business as well.
Yeah.
My page is blank, so. All right, Tony, you had an opportunity to get out?
Yes, I went out and met her at very late in the morning to me. But
It was not.
there's definitely a new deck there. She explained the reasons why. I could see that the old steps would been very steep. So what she did is the upper deck, she put down to a landing, and then from the landing, it goes down to her new deck. And then from the new deck, it goes down to her thing. She
That's what we're hoping.
She did cut down some saplings, I don't think any of great size, maybe an inch to 2 inch at most. Didn't cut them down to the ground, cut them so they would be below the deck. I didn't see any brush or anything cut alongside the shoreline, so the erosion going down. But there's definitely underneath the new deck, there was, cut down so it wouldn't come up through the deck.
Right now.
Yes. My biggest concern, and I told her, that is how she planned to keep the vegetation from growing up through the deck and pushing up on the structure.
All right, thank you, Tony.
I want to also, I would agree with Tony, I actually went by I was up in the booth.
Oh, yeah, I did that too.
And he's right, I mean, she just cut the stuff off, there's no root damage or anything like that, it's like just topping a tree or trimming a Christmas tree.
Okay.
There is some brush that needs to be taken out of the water, that's some of the tops of the trees that weren't removed, that you cut
Okay.
off, they're just laying.
Oh, are they?
branches and stuff like
Okay,
that.
I
They should
didn't-
be pulled.
I didn't
They're
see
not
that,
in the
yeah.
water, but they're just,
Yeah.
they got cut
Yes,
off.
folded
and left
over.
there.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Those
You're
should
right,
be
I forgot
removed.
about that.
The decks on pilings, I think we would have permitted it had there been a permit, because there's very little disturbance and everything was hand dug.
Even though it's in the 15-foot no disturb.
Let's,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right, it is.
That, we're gonna get, we'll get to that.
I hadn't really thought about the 15-foot, I was thinking about different decks we permitted that way.
Right.
So that is an issue, because it's
Okay.
definitely within 15 feet. It's probably like 10 feet off the water.
Yeah, I figured 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not get an opportunity to go out and see, but based on the descriptions of what I'm hearing, my biggest concern is precedence. Allowing you to maintain what you've done puts us in a very difficult position. Would you guys agree?
Well, because it's within the 15 feet, but.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I don't think I've ever recommended this, but my recommendation is that you remove the lower deck. I don't think it's going to be fair to the other property owners for that to be left. The process that you went through did not include the town. You didn't pull any permits. Had you pulled permits, you would have been well aware of what needed to be done. But in my mind, I don't support you leaving the lower deck, unfortunately. I just can't support that. It's going to set a precedence that's going to cause more, I think, trouble down the road for us. So that's my recommendation. I'm sorry, I'm not done
sorry.
yet. Had you made the effort to reach out to Town Hall and actually go through a building permit process, we wouldn't be in this situation at all. You would have had to come before us and talk about what you wanted to do, because that triggers a bunch of different departments to do due diligence on the actual project. So that's my opinion, but you have two other board members as well. But as it is right now, I don't support you leaving the lower deck. In terms of what you've mentioned before about safety and the steepest of the stairs, really that doesn't really come into play here until you have to come up with a plan to what you want to do, and that plan has to be submitted ahead of time. We can't be doing this after the fact. And there have been occasions where we have allowed that to happen, but you're right on the water. You're right on the lake. The lake is a whole nother animal. It's a very, very substantial resource for the town, and I'm sure there are many people wondering what's going to happen with the outcome of this that are also on the lake. And I can't support it because I don't think it's going to leave the commission in a very good position. So I'm done talking. David, do you want to weigh in?
I think it's, I mean, it clearly is a violation of the setbacks. I mean, at this point, I think it's a policy decision by the commission, you know, how you want to proceed.
I'm, it's not something that I think any one of us enjoys at all, and we don't like seeing the situation come up. But it's a very difficult position for us to be in, because what does that mean to the rest of the property owners in the lake that go through the proper process, apply for permits? What does that mean to them? If we were to allow you to leave that deck there in a spot where it is highly scrutinized.
Can I speak?
You may.
Okay, thanks. I do know that other people have gotten permits, and they're closer. They've been permitted.
They went through the process.
Yes. I don't know, I just know they've permitted. And there was something else I was gonna say, that I had two things. I had stairs there originally, and I'm not allowed to replace those stairs?
Well, that's not what you did.
I didn't
You
do
built
anything. No, I didn't do anything yet.
You built a platform.
Right, but I don't have any stairs there yet. I can't get down to my
think-
dock.
You're permitted to maintain what you had. had it been grandfathered.
Okay, I also have submitted, I did it a couple of months ago, submitted a building thing to the building department.
Right, and they've been waiting for the Conservation Commission to
Okay.
act on it. So she did submit a building permit
The day
application
that
after
they
the
came,
fact.
I did.
Oh, after the fact.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, I did the day they came, I was here within
When they
10
showed up,
minutes.
when they showed,
Yes.
okay.
And I went-
Yeah, no, that doesn't count.
To repair and maintain existing is okay with the building permit.
I couldn't do it
You
in.
can't add on, is what you're doing.
I, no, but the stairs were there.
But they're
and-
too steep, as I understand.
Right, they were too steep, so what I did was, I was gonna bring them back, so as I said last time, the gentleman fell down the stairs and broke his neck and died.
Right, and we were well aware of the situation that
So,
happened.
So, how do I get down to my dock?
You've gotta talk to a contractor and submit plans. You gotta reach out to a contractor, have the contractor file permit requests with the town. The contractor can devise a plan to safely get people down to your dock. The fact that you made it a larger area, you cut vegetation up against the lake without permits. That area is highly scrutinized. That's the contention, that is the point of contention. And it's not, we're not here to talk about how the deck is designed. That's not our purview. However, it needs to get down where it's safe, but you also have to understand that our expectation is that you're gonna maintain the existing footprint of what was originally there in terms of just overall size. And that's something for you to figure out with the contractor, how you can get down there and minimize impact.
I can't do it. It's impossible from the way it was.
Well, then, that is something that would be documented in the plans, that that you're looking for relief in the bylaw to accommodate that. But that would be done through a formal plan.
If I might be able to say, I don't, if it's a matter of needing to replace the existing stairs with stairs that are less steep grade to make it safer, I don't think the commission's gonna have a problem with that.
But that's all
I'm
I'm-
sure that's
that's
something
all
the
I'm
commission.
doing.
The issue here we're talking about is that deck, is that lower deck.
So it's not all you're doing. The lower deck is
No,
what we're.
no, what I'm saying is, I put another landing there. I start over here and continue over here, so if someone did fall, they're not gonna go all the way down the stairs.
Right, I think the thing that we're missing here is that that's not for us to decide. Something was done without permission in an area that is highly scrutinized. You need to go through the proper channel to get it done. And I don't support you leaving what you did. You gotta start over. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, this is another, I've got cement in the ground. You
That-
want me to pull the cement out?
Yeah, the foot.
It's gotta go back to the way it was.
Yeah, no, my point is that I'm going to do more damage to the lake and to the environment pulling it out.
You know what, I'm gonna let the rest of the board speak. That's
No,
my.
I'm just, no, what do I?
It-
You've got, no, but you've got to give me some idea. You're concerned, and I understand
can't-
about the environment.
Mhm.
How do I
It's not,
pull
it's also.
cement?
It's also about other property owners that go through the proper channels to get these things done. The fact
And
that
I
if we let you leave it there, it undermines the commission in terms of setting a precedence for other property owners, saying, oh, well, I don't need to ask for permission, I can just go ahead and do this, and later on I'll ask, for forgiveness. That's not how, you're very close to the water. It's a
And
very
and I
sensitive
did-
area.
And I think I told you, I had no idea that I needed to come in, or I would have.
Okay.
I had no, and I'm not saying ignorance is, I had no idea. I mean, I
Okay.
was here 10 minutes after they were at my house.
Mm-hmm, I understand. It really pertains to the fact that you're right on the lake. The lake is such a sensitive area for the town. It's an important resource for the town.
Absolutely.
And
But you're concerned about
it's
the
also
lake
about
and the
the applicability,
damage.
it's the applicability of the law as well as the environment.
She's gonna have to file to work, to have them take it out. So what's gonna have to happen is you'll have to file a notice of intent, meaning you'll have to come back before us, and we'll discuss how you're gonna remove what you've done.
I guess we will, do we
And
need,
we'll talk about your cement pillars then.
yeah. I guess we need to take a vote on what we want to do.
I would recommend it, I would recommend it.
Tony, do you want to?
Well, I'm torn on this. I really am. This hits home on a couple other projects that we allowed things to happen. Granted, they weren't on the waterfront, but we didn't make the people remove the decks or anything. One of them in particular was, the whole deck was within 50, the 50-foot no disturb. It was actually 35 feet of it was there. The front part was within the no build part of it. We had a gentleman here that built a deck with no permits, no nothing. Everything was within the 50-foot, and we allowed it. I agree with my commissioner, my chairman, that this is a very sensitive thing, and this is where I have my hard time, is that I felt that before, we should have put our foot down, end of story. And I want to touch another subject that you brought up a while back about notifying people. I'd like to see the commission write a formal letter to everybody that has wetlands in Winchton and advise them. You know, that way they don't have any excuse. This is getting out of hand, and I'm very torn between telling her to take it down or letting her finish it, because of what in granted, those other two that I'm thinking of just weren't on the water either, but they were definitely within the 50-foot no disturb.
Yeah, this is right on the water. This is, it's not something that I think, I've been on the commission for, I think, over 8 years, and I don't think we've ever asked for this. But this is probably one of the most close activities to the lake.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying, you know, I'm really torn to tell her to take it down.
Yeah.
I really am, and I see more harm having her take it down and removing those cement pillars out of the ground than you're not gonna shovel them out. You're gonna have a machine there to do it, so.
I think there is the impact, but there's also the message that we're sending to the remainder of the property owners in that area, and and the fairness of how these laws get applied. It's not an ideal situation at all, but I certainly appreciate what you're saying, Tony. Unfortunately, my position doesn't change. So.
Well, I think the fact that it's within the 15-foot is quite different from being 35 or 40 feet away. We have allowed deck pillars to be put in within, but it's mostly replacement stuff, and that's
grandfathered.
And they've grandfathered in, and we allow that, but this is a brand-new deck. If it were permitted to start with and had a design plan and program, we probably could have avoided all of this, because there's different ways of supporting decks besides putting a cement post right next to the water. So I lean with the chair. And it's gotta start from ground zero.
And if removing the posts, the basins.
That's a whole different process, and
Yeah.
maybe
I don't have the
we
money
tell
to
you
do
not
that.
to remove them.
I don't have the money to get those taken out.
The answer to that may be plantings around it and leave
Yep.
cement.
You can leave them.
But you need to come up with a design plan that meets everyone's requirements, and this one doesn't.
Yeah. It's not.
It's not up to us, but.
No. Is there anything else you want to add, or, I mean, I think at this point, are there any abutters, anyone here care to speak about that?
The only thing I will add is that I think there's a larger problem here. There was a new deck put in, actually very, very close to this property, at 6 Island Road, that was probably just about as close as this one, that was done without a permit, And not only that, it violated, you know, zoning setback requirements. But, I mean, I think like the building department was only too happy to let the Conservation Commission, you know, deal with this problem.
This really should-
Where, you know, the building inspector didn't want to touch it, even though there were zoning violations in addition to violations of the wetland setbacks.
That
You know,
deck's
I
still
know-
standing?
It's still there.
What's the address?
I think I can go back and double check. I think he did file an after-the-fact RDA for the deck. I'll go back and double check, but, you know, the commission did let it stay. But even so, the zoning violations stand. And, you know, again, the building inspector just wasn't gonna go there, even though I've heard complaints from at least one of the abutters. You know, why was that deck allowed there in violation of the zoning setback? So I think there's a larger issue here. I think there really needs to be a town policy for dealing with these kinds of situations.
Zoning violation, I mean, the fact
Exactly.
that it still stands.
Exactly. I mean, they didn't go to the ZBA for an after-the-fact variance, which probably would have been granted.
Well,
but
I had this-
He wasn't told, they weren't told to do it by the building inspector.
I don't think it's gonna change the position here at all, but, are we ready to take a vote,
Well,
or do you want more discussion?
you know, you bring that up, and it's always been my intention that the building inspector has the first line of defense of any building project in town. And for us to play the bad people, that shouldn't be our position, and we're put in it way too many times. That whether it's a shed that's being built because it's under the 200 square foot and it's put in our jurisdiction, and then we gotta be the bad guy. As you well know, I went to the town manager to address that, and I was shot down.
And it's come up again recently.
Yes, it has. And I'm sick and tired of being the bad guy when our building process in this town is very, you know, you go to the building inspector, you get a permit. The first line of defense is his office, along with, should be this: you didn't get a building permit, so you need to get it signed off by everybody else. And he shouldn't have, he should be and he is supposed to be the first line of defense. And like I said, and now you bring up 6 Island Road, and it's like, now what?
I think this discussion is good, but in terms of our person in front of us, I don't know how that's gonna make anything different for her right now. I certainly
I
appreciate.
realize that, but I'm just saying, you have another person that did it on the lake,
Well,
and
we're gonna look at that.
I think
then we should, if we're going to stand strong, then it's gotta go across the board.
Well, I think the thing is, Tony, is this is the first time we've come across, at least that I can remember, where it's this close.
I agree with you.
This is tight to the water.
I agree, I'm just saying,
I mean, a lot of properties on the lake are very small properties, so I get it. There's not a lot of place to work for accessory structures.
And a lot of places that have decks are grandfathered. They were there prior to this bylaw. This bylaw is very restrictive, changed in 1998. So anything after that that's built has to go through us. So, you know, I'm sure you can go around the lake and say, they got a deck, because you do, you can see them, but it's the fact that it's after the fact that is the problem.
Okay. All right. Are we,
I think it's really up to you now to decide.
what is your recommendation?
It's a policy decision by the commission at this point.
What do you mean by policy?
Whether we allow it or not.
Yeah.
I just think it's gonna put us in a very bad position if we allow it. It's so close to the water. Yeah, it stinks. It really stinks. We don't like being put in this position just as much as you don't like the fact that you gotta take it out. We don't wanna see people have to waste money. but it's a very difficult position for us to be in as a board.
So I think you need to vote something specific to give her direction
Okay.
at this point.
In light of it all, we do within right, we have the ability to levy fines, but we're not going to do that. I'm not going to recommend that. It was a mistake, but that's something that's in our purview. We can do that, and we did not do that.
Fine.
What's that?
I'll give you a tree. I like trees.
Is there,
Levy a fine instead of making me take. No, but
We
I
could have
got
done that in
cement
conjunction.
ground.
We can do that in
I can
conjunction.
give you a tree for crying out loud. It's not that I don't like trees.
we're not
That's
worried
about the environment.
It's
not
not,
worried about the trees, it's the precedent that we're setting if we allow it.
yeah.
But there's already another precedent that was already set, and it was allowed.
Well, that's in violation, it's just the town has failed to take action on it. This one falls before us.
And we're gonna, so yeah. In terms of direction, I think, it's, removal, we would have to review
Well,
what.
we would recommend to the, I would say we would recommend to the building department that it be removed, unless they come up with a better plan, or.
They're not gonna touch that. They want the commission to make a decision at this point.
So our decision really
that ain't
isn't,
right.
wait a minute, our decision.
That ain't right.
No, our decision isn't to remove, our decision is to say she's in violation of the wetlands protection law, and it's gotta be corrected, so.
Well, but you
By
do have
either
the.
removal or correction, so if she were to build that, if she were to support that, not from the ground, from the top deck down, by, like a good engineer could do, you would not be in violation.
But she had to clear brush. She did have to cut.
I'd wait.
You do have the
She
authority.
didn't clear it, she cut it off.
You do have the authority to require removal, whether or not you want to require removal of the footings, that's a detail that needs to be.
I see her point. There is a way around it, there really is. You need an engineer. Or a real good builder.
And a real lot of money.
Well, I'm
That's,
trying to help you.
Yeah. But as it is, in the current situation.
There's a deck above it, I mean, it's very doable.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have to make some sort of a decision, though. We can't let it linger.
I'll make a motion for removal.
No?
I'm gonna, before I give you my answer, I will give you my word as a board member. I will not vote for any other approval whatsoever if we order her to take this down. Everything that comes in front of me, I will vote no. If they went and violated the Wetlands Act, with a heavy heart, I'm gonna second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, this is under.
Oh, new business.
Under new business,
Okay.
so this is,
That was the worst vote I've ever had to take.
this is another favorite site.
This-
So, do you
this
recall
should-
44 West Shore Drive?
44 West Shore Drive.
Yes, that was a new house and septic system,
Oh, Sunset Lake, okay.
where the commission granted waivers to the 75-foot, build. Yeah, it was basically that. There was a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So, this lot is currently on the market for sale. It has been cleared. The building envelope has been cleared. Beyond that, nothing has been done. I had been by there a couple of times, just driving past after the clear cutting was done. I was a little bit concerned about the extent, wasn't sure that it complied with You recall there was an area to be permanently restricted, which is shown in yellow.
Mhm.
That was going to be a deed restriction in return for granting the waiver to the 75-foot no-build.
Mhm.
So Tony and I went out there last Friday, and I'll speak to it first, then I'll let him speak to it. I think that we both agree, though, that where it says 4 foot, proposed 4-foot wide walkway down to the water, that has been extensively cleared to the point where it's in violation. That area down there was what I think we measured 15 feet, at least 15 feet wide.
That's just on the,
15 feet wide?
Yeah.
and that's just the bales. Never mind that from probably shrub or tree on either side, you're looking between 20 to 25 feet wide.
So, in my opinion, and I think Tony agrees, I think that's clearly a violation down there.
Well, 4 feet and 15 feet are very different numbers.
Right, so I've spoken to the prospective buyer, I guess actually now there is a signed purchase and sale agreement, who is here tonight. I have expressed to him my opinion, and my opinion would be is that something needs to be done in that area to bring it back to the 4-foot wide path that was approved. I think, again, just expressing my opinion, I think that if some kind of shrubs, some kind of native shrubs were planted, like low bush blueberry, to more clearly delineate the 4-foot wide path, and then let on either side of it, grow back naturally, like it was. That would satisfy me. There was some additional cutting in the restricted area. If you look just south of the path, there were some trees. I think there was like a 12-inch wide diameter tree that was there. So there definitely has been some cutting in the restricted area. You in my opinion, it would be okay to either plant something to restore it or let it come back naturally, just as long as it's understood that nothing else could be done in that area before. So
this is still, the property hasn't been transferred yet? Or it has been transferred?
no, I don't think no closing yet.
It has not, okay.
So I don't know, Tony, if you want to say anything.
Well, when this proposal came in front of us, I didn't like it because it went within the 50 to 75. We gave them permission to build within 4 feet of that 50-foot no disturb. I can clearly remember telling them to clean that up, that there was already a 4-foot, 5-foot pathway down there. The hay bales are posted 14 to 15 feet away, all the way up to the lake, within 4 feet, 5 feet of the lake. And they just took everything and anything that was there. Beyond the hay bales on each side, I would say that whole strip is 20 to 25 feet that we measured in different places in that, down to the lake. And I don't understand how, they went down past the 50-foot, no disturb to the lake, period, when clearly we told them that path all you have to do is clean it up. You have a nice path to go down there. So, and there are definitely saplings, limbs taken off of each side that you could clearly see.
And if you look closely at the plan here, you see that, again, that little squiggly area, that's the limit of permanent clearing, and you see that it actually does go across the path down to the water, which means that area was not supposed to be cleared.
Well, I believe we said that they could clean a footpath? The footpath down there. I can remember because they wanted to do something else or.
Well, yeah, to
in
get
that, but-
to get to.
Well, it
the-
says proposed removable dock, so they probably want to have access to the
Yeah,
dock.
and that was approved, but there were like 2 or 3 saplings that only needed to be cut to achieve that 4-foot wide path originally, so.
And it's 15 feet now. Okay.
And then some.
So, So you're-
Speak at some point about measurements and stuff.
sure, why don't you come over here? And you're not the property owner yet?
I am not, and I don't know if this couple is the property owner?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
this is the Schmicks, I believe. They are the current property owners.
This is our first time having this happen.
We are the prospective buyers.
Okay.
So I'll come to the mic and I'll just explain what I see. So thank you again for adding us to new business, and I appreciate David's time last week upon request to go out and take a look at the site. As part of the purchase, we were simply looking for some assurance that the order of conditions had been complied with. And so I called David and asked him if he could drop by the site and give us some level of assurance that the order of conditions was clean without violations. And so David went out there last Friday. And this correspondence on this between David and I that has been shared with the Schmicks through counsel on either side. We signed a purchase and sale agreement. We're looking to close as soon as practically possible. This is the only kind of hang-up on the deal since David went out on Friday and found some concerns. I'm an engineer, not a registered engineer, but I'm an engineer, real estate background. I kind of knew what David was referring to with all this. I've got the ability to take David's drawing that he sent me as a PDF. I scaled it all up using software packages. I went out today before coming over here, measured up what I could find. And, you know, I understand, I don't know the past discussions, but this proposed 4-foot wide walkway is shown in the dash lines on your drawing. And then there are these wattles that are shown. And when you scale the wattles, they're between 8 feet and 9 feet apart. And this can all be proven on, you know, a 2-scale drawing from an engineer if it had to be, but I think I'm reasonably sure that it's 8 to 9 feet wide between the wattles, okay? So I went out there with my tape measure 3 hours ago, now 4 hours ago probably now, and I measure down at the lake edge, it's about 10 feet wide. Then it varies between 11, 12. The widest point I measured was 13 feet wide. I then measured the length from the lake to where the wattles flare out to the sides of the property. It's spot on with these dimensions, 62 feet, 63 feet, depending on which side you're on. It's almost exact, okay? So to me, measuring it, it seemed like any widening of the slot was done on the order of 2, 3, maybe 4 feet in one spot or two. I don't measure 15 feet anywhere from inside a wattle to inside a wattle. It's really a hay bale they used, as David explained to me, a wattle versus a hay bale. So I'm just trying to give the context of what the nature of the over disturbance may be. I don't know anything about what the yellow areas look like before. Whether there was extra thinning done in there, I don't know. Yes, I can see a couple of saplings that were, they seem to have fresh, you know, relatively fresh cuts in them, but, and one tree of maybe, I don't know, 12-inch caliper or something that was right on the other side of a hay bale. And I don't know if that's an old cut or was done with this rest of the clear cutting of the land.
It was done with this. I was out on the site prior to any.
So I'm simply trying to kind of give some order of magnitude of what the deviation is from the plan that was approved. And, I mean, it seems to me like it was approved to have an 8 to 9 foot clearing between the hay bales. And I think any logger, clear cutter, whoever they had, you know, come out to the site would have understood that once he put those down, he could do what he had to between them. But he went wider than he was supposed to.
Well, because he didn't look at the plan. See, and I think I spoke to you about this, Tim, is that you, with regard to placement of that erosion control. And again, the plan says wattles, not hay bales. Wattles are easier to place without the need for cutting than hay bales, much easier to place. But anyway, so I think you need to make that distinction between, the distance between the wattles and, again, doing the clearing to be able to either place them, or assuming that distance is allowed to be cleared. Again, if you look at the plan, the limit of clearing is shown to cross that area. So there really should have been clear that no clearing should have been done in that area. But having said that,
Again, I don't know the history,
Well, I think it's mainly a matter of looking at the plan, in my opinion.
Well, again, not to argue the point, but
David
it seems like they could have cleared anywhere that wasn't shaded yellow. That's what it would seem to me as kind of an educated layman.
I went out there today, and none of the work was done by either of you two men, which is fine. And I'm just gonna offer a quick solution. It's getting late. Either 5 rhododendrons or 10 of something, rhododendrons or blueberry bushes on each side, and we can all go home.
I mean,
like a hedge line down each side of it.
4 feet. 4 feet wide.
We're done.
And that's what
Everybody's happy.
But I'm not sure you're happy with that.
Well, if he wants to close.
Well, I'm not quite sure, a rhododendron to me is something that's gonna grow up and be
Blueberries
6,
grow
10, 12
really,
foot.
really slow. It takes 20 years for them to get this big.
And, I looked up a low bush blueberry.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a short little thing. It grows to maybe 2 feet. To me, that would be okay. Now, will it look weird to have a string of blueberries
when your wife's
adjacent
making a blueberry
to
muffin?
natural, forest floor? I mean, I don't know.
Blueberry's a natural wetland plant.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, but you see low bush blueberries in forests all the time.
Yeah. I guess I'm jumping ahead, but could we, in these yellow impacted areas, would we at any point be allowed to plant additional ground cover, or a blueberry, a native plant? I mean, could I plant more blueberry than just an odd-looking 2-foot strip? Could I let it flare out into the remaining yellow area?
Well, I guess my question would be, Tim, is it sounds like, and what is, I think I proposed earlier, is that on either side of the line of blueberries going down, that be allowed to come back natural. What you're saying is it sounds like you really want to maintain that.
Maintaining in the yellow area?
No, just on outside of the 4 foot wide.
Oh, yeah, I mean, in our mind, we were just thinking we'd go wattle to wattle and grass it. I mean, that was.
See, that's, in my opinion,
that was before we got into this
that's
situation.
not what was approved.
Yeah, that's not negotiable. That was set before you even talked about buying the property. That is not negotiable.
And just to clarify, and I'm not gonna get into footage and this and that, Dave and I measured outside from outside. And even on the outside of those hay bales, if you went down there, David, you know that's 20, 25 feet, but.
It was 15 feet at the widest point, outside to outside.
It's gotta be corrected, that's the bottom line.
Exactly,
So
there
correct
should
it.
be.
We don't have to argue about how far it is. Let's just-
Right, the shrubbery and things like that to go back and put the 4 foot, because it clearly states right here, approved 4 foot wide.
I see it.
And the story. And
Yeah,
it's gotta be restored, it's just the amount of what vegetation we want, or what you would like to have there, because you're eventually gonna be the homeowners, but.
The idea of the low bush blueberry is acceptable to us. I think we just need to work out maybe offline,
Come up with a list
through
and talk to
conversation with
David
David, the exact extent of it. I understand the 4 foot width. I mean, 4 foot width is enough for us to get through there without a problem.
Well,
I just didn't want anything growing there, because you mentioned like a high bush blueberry as an option. I looked that up, and it grows to 10, 12 feet tall, and I'm like, I'm not.
Well, that's gonna wreck your
And
view.
I don't know how long it takes to do that.
Exactly, and
but,
that's why the whole path was cleared, is to have a view to make it more sellable.
Right.
And that's not what we proposed and approved.
Yeah, so.
So it's wider than what you approved.
Yes.
You want it closed back in, to a
Well, I
4-foot
just made my
pathway.
point about the scenery. It made it a lot more, when we went down there and looked at it and walked before anything was done, there was a nice little clearing pathway to the lake. And it,
At this point, I would-
did it obstruct
You know.
the view? Absolutely. And the reason that it was cleared that way is so you would have a better view.
Yeah, I'd yield the floor on anything, you know, from the past, and if the Schmicks would like to comment on that, I'd certainly turn the mic over, but that's all I.
Yeah, it's, yeah, that's up to them. But I think we're,
Yeah, I'll just make a comment on the, we didn't do anything nefarious here on the marking. And it wasn't, we asked for wattles and we were told we had to do hay bales. You can look back in the notes to see that. So we were, we also, after we had the silt fence put in, you came out and took a look at it.
I did not go that far down. I only looked at where the construction was proposed. Again, because it showed on this plan, it showed that there would be no work done beyond where the path goes down.
Okay,
I didn't go down that far.
My engineer told me that he had gone down and taken a look at it, everything was fine. I gave the drawing to the person who did the clearing, and that's what I ended up with. I didn't know that I couldn't take anything in the pathway. I thought that was,
4 feet in the pathway.
yeah, but
4 feet.
I didn't, again, I didn't lay it out. The contractor laid it out and went down and did the work. I was operating under the assumption that everything was on the up and up.
So the mistake that your contractor made was the fact that they ignored, there's actually, it shows on the drawing here, there is a tree line there. And basically what this is depicting is a footpath. And they're saying that they wanted erosion control down there because there was mention of that actually being a 4-foot path. But if you look at the leading edge before the pathway goes onto the lake, it shows a tree line. So that to me would mean that trees of substance that are outside of that 4 feet
I can
weren't to be
see that
touched.
now.
Yeah. So it's honest mistake, but nonetheless, it's gonna be fixed, so.
No problem with that either.
So, if I go back to a different one. So, if the low bush blueberry solution is acceptable,
Yeah, I'd like it,
Board?
I'd like it in writing, and not only just that, but again, in writing that the area then, that's been cleared on either side, that's gonna be left to grow back natural.
well, we're buying it, understanding that everything in the yellow has to grow back natural anyway, so there's no new condition
Well,
that has
right,
to be made.
but the 15 feet that's been cleared, then outside of the 4 feet that's gonna be allowed to stay and delineated by the blueberry bushes, then the area between,
The 4-foot path and the 15-foot,
right,
whatever the
that
number
needs
is.
to be
The outside edge of the
Right,
hay bale,
right.
basically, right?
Right.
We shouldn't use a number, we should just say the outside edge of the hay bale.
In
Back into
between
the
the
4-foot path.
Right, yeah, so that,
So that gets planted with a low bush blueberry up to that point where it flares out.
well, that's what we need
'Cause
to
I don't think there's any
decide.
violation
That-
once it flares out.
That, so I think what you're saying is you'd like a 15-foot wide, Lotus blueberry.
I get that's what you're saying.
Well-
I'll accept it, but that's what you're saying.
Well, but again, these areas, this area right here, and this area right here, that's, my recommendation is that come back natural.
Oh.
With just the line of blueberries on either side delineating that.
Oh, as a delineation, and let it come back natural, like just sandy.
Right, so what you're left with is just a 4-foot wide path with
That I could
blueberries on either
grass or-
side,
Okay,
but then coming back natural beyond
Okay.
that.
okay.
You see what I'm
I
saying?
can do that.
Okay,
But
so,
blueberries would be natural if he wanted to, say he wanted to grow blueberries, he could why couldn't he put blueberries in there?
you mean to encompass the 15-foot
Yeah,
wide?
Right,
Okay,
that's what you.
so you're saying that's okay with you?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I'll take, you know, the minimum requirement, and then I'll talk to David in the future about whether we wanna go any wider. If the minimum requirement is to plant a thin row on either side of the 4 foot to delineate the pathway.
Yep.
Then I just need to know, what can I do in the pathway itself? Grass strip, can I put any paver stones or anything
Oh, you know that stuff
down
was
there? I mean,
I-
there's no.
My opinion is grass would be okay.
grass is-
Were you here earlier today when the, Winchendon committee was in with that,
No.
that new stone thing there, that?
Oh, I saw the fellow who was.
That worked, that's a wicked good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you have erosion issue, but, yeah, we have, it's a very gentle, flat
Yeah.
slope at that point, not subject to erosion.
Right. We can
So how does this get written up between, do you draft something, do we draft something? Do we
Why
have to
don't,
deal with the seller
why
and
don't you
attorneys?
write up something based on based on what your understanding is of what has been decided tonight, and email it to me, and I will review it and let you know my comments.
And does this need to be voted on by the commission at a future meeting, or can it be done in a staff?
Well, it's what they authorize me to do. If they authorize me to make the decision, then no, they don't have to vote on it.
We trust your judgment.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I just want clarification. 4-foot strip walkway to there, and you're only proposing a little skinny strip of blueberry bushes on each side?
Single line of blueberries on either side. If,
Like you mentioned that you really didn't like that idea. You like it a little wider or something, didn't you? The
4 feet
blueberry,
is-
No, I'll accept the strip.
the one
After
row
I
of
learn more
blueberries?
about what these blueberries are and whether it attracts, you know.
Well, I'm just
birds or
asking, so
bears
one
or whatever.
row of blueberries on each side, and then let the natural growth, right?
Yeah.
that's what
All right,
I,
that's what we're,
yeah.
all
That would
right,
be the
all right,
agreement.
all right.
so draft that up in your own words, email it to me, and I'll review
I'll
it.
have to run it through council and
Yeah, well, you can
the
have
seller,
counsel.
and then we'll send it back to you, and,
Okay,
but I understand what you're looking for.
All right.
And you think you can do it at a staff level so that it doesn't have to wait till September 12th?
that's what I'm hearing them tell me.
Is that what you're?
So we need a motion to approve this, providing he gets the documentations to
To
you,
David's satisfaction.
all right?
I think a motion would be good.
All right. Make a motion to approve it, providing David's approval of his plans.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Good luck.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.